Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as we're about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief Executive of the Association for International Broadcasting, Simon Spanswick.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you. I'm sorry to interrupt your conversations. I don't want to break up the party, but we're going to have a party right the way through the evening. So please find your seats, sit down, prepare to be amazed, enthralled, enticed, and any other word that you can think of at this time on a Friday evening. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name, as you may not have heard, is Simon Spanswick. I'm the Chief Executive of the Association for International Broadcasting, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the 20th AIBs. These awards celebrate the pinnacle of journalism, factual productions, and storytelling from around the world. Now, I'm going to give you a little history lesson. I know you're not interested at the moment, but let's see. When we started the first awards back in 2005. They took place at the Royal Geographical Society as part of a conference that the AIB was organising. And at that point, back there in 2005, I could never have imagined just how much this competition would become such a landmark event in the international media calendar. So thank you to everyone that's entrusted us with their work, to showcase their work over the past 2 decades. Now, one or two of you in this room might even have been in this room in 2006, because this is where we held our second awards. Coincidentally, it was also on the 22nd of November. Now, since then, the AIBs have come a huge long way, and it's all possible because of passionate professionals like you who believe in the power of storytelling to inform, inspire, and make a difference. Tonight, we're here to honour your work, your outstanding work, and the vital role that you play in the world. Over the past 19 years, winners have received our familiar angular trophy. It's on the screen now. I've had the privilege of seeing these trophies proudly displayed in broadcasting organisations from Wellington in New Zealand to Doha in Qatar. But for this milestone year, we decided it was time for a new, fresh look. So we commissioned UK-based artist Anna Mazzotta to create a new trophy that reflects both our history and legacy of broadcasting itself, whilst also looking to the future. Anna is over there on table 5. She's designed a stunning piece of art crafted from her initial sketches into a hand-carved 3D model. You can see it on the screen now, and then transformed into the silver statue that you'll see this evening. You can read more about Anna's vision and the concept behind the design in the winners and finalists book that will be available at the end of tonight. And do be sure to take a look at some of her artwork. One of the pictures is there and all around the room, because it's available if you want to, and talk to Anna about the opportunity to, see what you could do. There are some familiar faces portrayed, I think, in some of Anna's art. So she's open to having a conversation about what she can do for you. So back to the awards themselves. This year we received over 400 hours of remarkable content from across the globe. And our shortlisting team faced the formidable task of selecting the best of the best to go through to our international jury, 56 people around the world who have evaluated that shortlisted work. Quite a task. And of course, none of this would be possible without our partners who help to bring the AIBs to life every year. A special thanks goes to our event partner, Radio Taiwan International. RTI's support is invaluable in helping us create this unique gathering of broadcasters, journalists, filmmakers, and storytellers who come from around the world and who are making a real impact. RTI's involvement, I think, is a testament to Taiwan's commitment to media freedom and the fight against misinformation. We're very pleased to welcome Chairperson Cheryl Lai and her team who've travelled from Taipei. They're on table 21, just over there. We are also very grateful to Paydesk, a platform that connects media companies to the largest global network of verified freelance news professionals. Paydesk is sponsoring the winners and finalists book, which will be available at the end of the evening. Representing Paydesk are Henry Pierce and Morgan Sowden. They're on table 3, I think, down there. Go and talk to them about the opportunity there. Now, every year, we invite one of the AIB's member companies to nominate one of their presenters to host this evening. This year, CNA, based in Singapore, responded to our call, and CNA yesterday held a launch event here in London, marking the availability of the channel on Freeview here in the UK. And we're joined by a group of CNA and MediaCorp staff on table 6 directly in front of me. So welcome to everybody. So there may be people in the room who aren't aware of CNA, so I think to introduce the channel, we're going to take a moment, in a moment, to watch a short video before our host for the evening, Otelli Edwards, who is a CNA journalist and anchor, takes to the stage to guide us through tonight's packed evening. Thank you all once again for being here, and here's to an unforgettable evening celebrating the very best in global journalism.
CNA, with our eyes on Asia and beyond.
Tensions are extremely high.
Our correspondents bring you stories that matter.
Speaking to Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim.
As the most trusted news source for 6 consecutive years,
Tonight's top stories.
our award-winning programs offer in-depth insights. Reaching 110 million homes worldwide. CNA, understand Asia.
Thank you very much, Simon, for that wonderful introduction. And a warm welcome to each and every one of you to the 20th edition of the AIBs. It's my first time being here, and I get to host the event, so lucky me. 20 amazing years. That's actually longer than a lot of marriages, I know. So I know that Simon, Claire, Neil, and the team have done a wonderful job. Can we just give them a big round of applause? To 20 wonderful years and many, many, many more years to come. In all honesty, I'm truly delighted and honored to be here this evening to guide you through this evening's celebration of excellence in journalism and factual storytelling. And this year, of course, marks a milestone for the AIBs, and it's a privilege for me to be a part of it. So I was just looking back at some of the photos from 2006 at the awards, and it was held here at this very same venue, at the IET, and I saw Channel News Asia. Well, that's what we were called back then. We're now CNA because we're more than just a channel, we're a multimedia platform, and we were proudly listed as a nominee. And again, it's a reminder to all of us here of how the AIBs have become a global endeavor from the beginning. And today, that international spirit is as strong as ever, seeing so many of you out here today. So tonight, I believe we have guests from 20 countries, spanning from Singapore to Senegal, gathered here to celebrate the power of journalism. And of course, we are united by a shared commitment to storytelling that informs, inspires, and sometimes it gets a bit challenging. So the stories that we are celebrating tonight, we're celebrating each and every one of your work, represents the pinnacle of journalism at a time when you know that truth is under pressure, misinformation is rampant, and audience attention is hard-won. I mean, everyone's got ADHD these days. But each of you, I have to say, have contributed to holding power to account and delivering reliable information, and it's a role that is more vital than ever. Okay, so before we dive into the awards, and there are lots of them, just giving you a heads up, here is a quick overview of how the evening will unfold. And some of you who have been here before, my apologies in advance if I sound like a broken record, but first thing to say, it is a jam-packed night. That's because AIBs will showcase every shortlisted entry, and it means that we can all learn from and share the way stories are told across the world. And I know I'm surrounded by the best in the industry, the creme de la creme, so I'm very excited to see those videos. There are also some commendations in categories, so we'll be taking the commendation certificates directly to the recipients at their tables. And the details are in the winners and finalists book that is also available to you at the end of the night. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be announcing the winners, okay, and invite you on stage for a brief conversation to explore the good work that you have done. So this evening will also be in 2 parts with dinner served in between. But obviously there's canapes, there's drinks, there's refreshments on your table, so you're not going to be starved. Don't worry about that. That's going to keep you, yep, that's right, fuel throughout the first half. So do me a favor here, okay? I mean, we're in this industry where we hardly have any time off, especially on a Friday. So if there's a ping on your phone, there's breaking news, who cares, okay? Because we're here to have fun today. We're here to relax. We don't get to do it. So if you are relaxed, I am relaxed. So do me a favor and just sit back and prepare to be inspired by exceptional storytelling, courageous reporting, and of course an unwavering commitment to truth as tonight's awards get underway.
There are just 7 shepherdesses left in Pakistan's Shimshal Valley. They have to make a dangerous trek to move their animals to higher ground, often warding off attacks by wolves. How could thousands of priceless artifacts go missing from the British Museum? Was it an inside job? And why did it take so long for anyone to believe what was happening?
I think the only way of hoping to recover them is to get the thief to disclose how he sold them and where he sold them. But we're a long way from that, it seems. And of course also for the museum to disclose what they've lost.
What defined Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's first Prime Minister, who oversaw the city-state for more than 3 decades?
Productivity means the ability to use men and machines in such a cooperative way that you produce more products per man hour of a superior quality than any other person can do.
Miho Hazama has been on quite a journey, from a child practicing ballet and playing the electric organ to becoming one of the key figures shaping the future of jazz.
The more I used the instrument, I became more experimental. To me, music has always been about having fun.
13-year-old Leslie needed to use all her indigenous knowledge to keep her little brother and sisters alive after they survived a plane crash deep in the Colombian Amazon.
Quiero encontrar la salida de la selva. Por eso decido ir al oeste usando el sol como mi guía.
Just how has an artisan indigo dyeing group in Japan attracted global attention, leading to collaborations with luxury international brands?
Jimmy Choo さんというブランドさんなんですけど、ライトインディゴとインディゴとダークインディゴという3色に染め分けて生地のまま送るっていうそんなお仕事になっています。
100 years ago, Scott, Shackleton and Amundsen made their epic journeys to the South Pole. Now Ben Fogle and Dwayne Fields are reliving the trials and tribulations faced by those early explorers.
Antarctica receives so little rainfall, it's classified a desert. Scott and his men often went without drinking water from breakfast to dinner. They were dangerously dehydrated for much of the expedition.
It's amazing how much snow and ice you need just to make a little bottle of water.
Well, extraordinary journalism there you just saw, covering events across 5 continents, opening tonight's celebration. And I was told that the judges were won over by a program with gripping narrative. It was well researched, it was well reenacted. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner is Operation Esperanza. Okay, hold on. You're not allowed to leave. You want to hear all about your good work, not so fast. So very many congratulations. Thanks for starting our show. Your mic is coming. Maybe you want to
Muchas gracias.
Okay, which means thank you very much, I suppose.
In Spanish.
In Spanish, okay. Remarkable production. Help us understand, because the search and rescue operation clearly took weeks and weeks. You've got plenty of footage, right? So how do you condense all of that into this one single awesome program?
Just keep talking. Okay, so it was 40 days of searching for these children who managed to survive all that time on their own in the middle of completely virgin forest. They were astonishing. And we obviously joined the programme once the children had been found, and it had turned into this most amazing story of unity, the first time ever that the Colombian government had worked with the indigenous peoples to do something quite so remarkable. And we worked both with the indigenous guard and with the government, and with, most importantly, with the family of the children to tell this story. And we were just so privileged to be invited into their lives.
And it's amazing that you filmed this all. It was in the Colombian Amazon, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, anacondas, giant spiders, malaria.
Fuck, that was the fun bit. And I think that, you know, hats off to our team who had an interesting time. They were invited for the first time to film in the village with the Indigenous Guard who we were working with primarily in this. And they were invited to stay, shall we say, and managed to get out complete with all their rushes. And yeah, it's a dangerous place down there, but the indigenous peoples who, you know, live there, who live every day there, who are fighting for their rights within Colombia, made this film with us so brilliantly.
Well, thanks for telling us that story. It had to be told. Thank you so very much, and congratulations.
At the University of Pennsylvania, there's a huge collection of human skulls. They seem to be intended to bolster white supremacy theories. House of Skulls reveals how they ended up there.
So, then they started shooting. Shot over 10,000 rounds of bullets at us in less than 90 minutes and had to send to their arsenal for more artillery.
It's important to remember that there are 13 people in this house.
Hollywood Exiles is a story of glamour, duplicity, and the US government's decades-long campaign to root out alleged communism in Hollywood. And it's got a special resonance in today's politically polarized world.
Well, Charlie Chaplin was my grandfather, and there was a time when he was the biggest star in all the world. But something happened, not just to him, but to hundreds of artists in Hollywood. They were forced to leave, forced out.
In 2019, Ghana launched the Year of Return, encouraging the African diaspora to invest, settle, and visit. The return highlights the experiences of those who've moved to Ghana.
And I've heard nothing good about the place. Who wants to go to Africa? But then I got here, and it's amazing. These people don't kill each other. Nobody's gonna get shot in Ghana tonight. I would rather ride down bumpy roads than streets paved in gold and black kids are killing each other on the streets.
This Is Living offers a sound, rich exploration of Ireland's living traditions, highlighting the country's vibrant heritage, local culture, and living history.
How we do things is constantly changing. In Spancel Hill, horses have always been sold on the fairgreen. But we've shifted the selling of cattle from the streets of our towns on fair days into the martyring built on the outskirts. And the sounds of hand slapping has become the pulsing rhythm of the auctioneer.
Research suggests that Australians are global leaders when it comes to listening to the radio. 79% tune in every week. But why? Is it the tyranny of distance, nostalgia, weather, commuting, or community? Who listens to the radio?
Radio is a very intimate medium. You mean you can't see me, I can't see you. So you do feel like it's very secretive.
I'm talking directly into your headphones, or as it was in those days, your Walkman or your clock radio. It's the intimacy of it. that's why radio works. It still does. Radio builds communities.
Bhutan was one of the last countries in the world to allow television, internet access, and democracy. But how much Western influence did the people there really want? The monk and the gun.
I wanted the gun to symbolize the coming of modernization, the coming of westernization, because obviously the gun is not made in Bhutan. It is a Western item, right?
Yeah.
It is an item that is symbolized, that represents, modernity. And just like with modernization, it can be beneficial.
Right, you just heard there 6 very varied stories in the arts and culture audio category. And the winner, for what judges agreed, is a masterpiece of audio journalism with lush and cinematic sound. That goes to... Thank you, appreciate it. Suddenly all went quiet. That's right, could be you. And the winner is Hollywood Exiles. Well done, ladies. Well done. So this production is sort of a co-production, right? So you actually worked with Canada CBC on this program. Correct, yeah. Very, very exciting. Just before I get on about that, so this, I'm just wondering, because a lot of people here might not know what McCarthyism is, and this story is about revisiting that. So perhaps give us a little bit of a quick synopsis and tell us what was the inspiration for you to pursue this story.
Absolutely. It's one of those rare stories that come across your desk and you just get excited when you start reading it because it has all the great characters, everybody from Hollywood stars to the FBI to Ayn Rand randomly. And just brilliant kind of Hollywood Tinseltown, but deep politics as well. So with McCarthyism, it's got a really interesting, fascinating link that we unearthed using Chaplin and his granddaughter basically presents it. Una Chaplin's presenting this piece, and it's a very personal telling of how a file was kept on Chaplin, and there were certain films that were suspected of having, certain political leanings, and were seen as un-American, certain Christmas favourites included. So this is a really personal exploration into how that kind of unfolded for those families in generations to come.
Right. And, actually, hold on to that. I'm just so used to always grabbing the mic off you. What is it like working with the Canadians? What are the benefits and the challenges? Oh. I'm asking for, from CNA, we've got a representative from Canada.
Right, absolutely fabulous. We love a good partnership, and this was a really well-serviced global kind of production. I just want to, shout out to the team in Wales, Glyn Martin and Megan and Martin Smith as well, who really put their heart and soul into this. Then we have the Canadian team and Jeff Turner, really kind of bringing all this together, and orchestrals, strings maestro, kind of playing all those components. And then we had the rest of the CBC team pushing together, as well as the BBC World Service, and then kind of bit of Tinseltown included. So it was a really global production.
It sounds like it's a real massive epic project. So well done, ladies, well done.
Thank you so much.
All right.
The Darien Gap has become one of the most travelled migration routes in the world. In 2023, more than 500,000 people went through the treacherous jungle. A quarter of them were children.
It's the fourth and final day. By this time, many migrants are low on food and the energy to keep going. It'll be another full day of walking to get out of the jungle. We smelt death already a couple of times on the journey, but this is the first body that we've come across, and it's right in the middle of the park.
Deep beneath the ocean's waves is the plumbing of the internet. It's a web of fibre optic cables that connect the entire planet's population. They're also on the front line of a tech war.
You're talking about, diplomatic brinkmanship, behind closed doors meddling in critical infrastructure, attempts for militaries and governments to control the very architecture of the internet. The entire global economy operates on the internet. So, you can call it a Cold War, you can call it grey zone warfare or geopolitical tensions.
Colombia has a booming sex tourism trade that attracts visitors from around the world. A significant proportion of the overseas tourists prey on minors.
Tourists who have sex with children are breaking the law, but they take advantage of local situations in which minors are made easily available for exploitation. Poor economic conditions, favourable exchange rates for the tourist, and relative anonymity are all key factors.
Thousands of Myanmar's young city-dwelling men and women are giving up their previous lives and joining the growing resistance to the junta.
Avant la guerre, ils étaient étudiants, ingénieurs, garagistes, professeurs, banquiers, artistes. Aujourd'hui, ils mettent leurs connaissances au service de la résistance.
America's landmark Inflation Reduction Act reshaped the country's energy industry and made it the most popular destination for international investment.
According to FT research, the IRA and the CHIPS Act together have helped stimulate more than $220 billion in manufacturing and clean technologies and semiconductors. This will create more than 100,000 jobs.
Seasoned traveller Sir Michael Palin embarks on a 1,300-mile journey across one of the world's most populous countries, experiencing the life, the culture and the history of Nigeria.
Makoko is still considered an illegal settlement by the government and a place where the average wage is less than $2 a day.
The buildings are nearly all, they're all makeshift, put together with bits of driftwood, a bit of corrugated iron here and there, just...
Yemen is a country exhausted by 9 years of war. Now it finds itself an unexpected player in the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
When was the last time you heard them fire into this area? You're saying that with a smile on your face, doesn't it scare you?
From Myanmar to Cambodia, your work here clearly defines, rather covers the globe. We appreciate each and every one of your contribution. So this is the International Affairs category, and the judges say that it goes to an educational, informative, and deeply insightful film. So the winner is How Biden's Inflation Reduction Act Changed the World. Okay, so you're here representing your colleague?
Yes,
indeed. Okay, so this is basically when somebody says that, it's like, if I don't know the answer to your question, forgive me, right? But I'm sure you do. Just walk us through, because you highlighted this piece of legislation actually that perhaps even a lot of Americans don't know about.
Yeah, I have to say, I wasn't totally not involved in this movie, and my colleague Dan was unable to come today.
Yeah.
So I just really wanted to say thanks on behalf of him and a team for it, but I wasn't involved, unfortunately, so I can't really speak to it.
But you surely know how hard they've worked and how many hours they've put in.
Yeah, they work incredibly hard, and Dan is a very meticulous filmmaker and a reporter.
So you can't answer the question about this this program. But what are your thoughts about Trump taking office in January, though? How optimistic or pessimistic are you?
I think we should leave politics out of it. I think we shall see how things develop in the next few months, and I think there'll be lots of filmmaking to be made on the back of that, and I think a lot of stories to be told, a lot of investigations to be had.
It's a Friday night. I'll let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
The Philippines has the 5th largest gold reserves in the world. Men and children dive down into wells they dig in the murky mangrove sludge, hoping to find the precious metal. Philippines, diving for gold.
Typically, this air compressor is used to inflate car tires. But for Atto, it's an iron lung that will allow him to dig at the bottom of the mud for several hours and collect the sludge containing particles of gold.
Over 15 years of companionship, an injured and initially hostile macaque monkey has become a gentle animal with affection for the abbess who looked after him. The abbess and Xing Xing.
没有人知道星星的来历。事态从他脖子上的勒痕和失去的手臂，以及麻木的目光。
The list of 31 uncovers the truth of how children were seized from Ukraine and sent to Russia soon after the invasion in the spring of 2022.
За підозрою у злочинах проти українських дітей Марія Львова-Білова разом з президентом Путіним тепер мають постати перед Міжнародним кримінальним судом в Гаазі. І батько Саші – один з ключових свідків у цьому процесі.
Exactly how much influence does the Chinese state wield over British institutions? Secrets and Power, China in the UK, revealed state interference and the repression of dissidents.
This is a story of intimidation.
They use the family to threaten the person.
Of China infiltrating British organisations and politics.
The resources it devotes to are quite extraordinary, and we are asleep on this.
What's it like to be a woman living on the streets in Brazil? Well, there's the ever-present threat of aggression, rape, and prejudice, as well as the challenge of feeding your children. If this street were mine.
Ainda não sabe o sexo?
Não, mês que vem.
De lá pra cá que você descobriu a gravidez, você tem pensado muito sobre sair da rua?
Sim. Porque eu falei pra ele, mano, eu não me vejo perder meu filho.
Você tem medo de ter o bebê na rua?
Eu sei que o conselho tutelar eles vão vir, eles caem em cima, não tem como. Todas aqui são mães, eu não tenho nenhuma com filho.
TikTok videos promising high-paid jobs in Spain appeal to many young Senegalese who embark on a perilous route across the Atlantic in search of a better life.
dëkk bi dafa toll fa nga xamante ne peut-être nit moom doone ko bul dem non te jeune bu toll foofu noonu nit mënu ko téye non dëkk bi am fi liggéey métti na da ngay am sa diplôme déposé ko fu nekk doo liggéey comment ils pourront m'écouter naka.
The number of crisis requests in Belgium has risen sharply in recent years. But children and young people who are struggling with life in their homes are being told there's nowhere for them to go. Youth care in crisis.
Dan naar huis gaan, denkt ze. En ze vlucht in het nachtleven.
Ik ging vaak gaan feesten met vriendinnen. Dat ook niet echt een supportsituatie hadden, waardoor dat we vaak in slechte omgevingen belanden.
Onze laatste hoop, de laatste voorziening, zei toen ook van ik snap het, maar er zijn nog 60 kinderen in die situatie.
Richard Spencer's harrowing experience as he endured 20 years of verbal and physical abuse at the hands of his wife, my abuser.
fucking created fucking get your grip huge times. Pass it a call. Is he great yet? 9 days, is that? 2.
The first video I watched, I had to pause several times. I had to collect my emotions, my own emotions. So there's something about those videos that I just really, that I really found emotive, really. And I struggled.
Just before I announce the winner to this, emotional domestic affairs category, to my favorite people in this room, while we were playing the video, the clips, I'd really appreciate it if you could just keep your noise level down a tad. Would really, really appreciate that. Okay, now. Right, we saw some really extraordinary and sometimes troubling stories in our domestic affairs category. And the winner for a gripping and powerful investigation, that goes to Dispatches, Secrets and Power, China in the UK. So I just want to verify, did you do the story? Yes. Okay, phew. Okay, plenty to ask then. When you were talking to these dissidents in the UK, right, did you have problems like trying to gain their trust, trying to get them to speak up?
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge hurdle. I mean, in the film, we expose an American man who is pretending to be a journalist from the Toronto Guardian in order to basically gather evidence on Hong Kong dissidents in the UK. This is the reality of what they face every day, hence the distrust with journalists. But luckily for us, our reporter, Isabel Young, she has a proven track record of reporting with integrity on this topic, which it basically meant that it was easier for us to kind of gain trust within those circles and make a film about them.
Yeah. And also, the thing is, such stories sometimes, the Chinese government doesn't take to criticism too well, right? Sometimes. So I'm wondering, was there a lot of blowback when this particular program went on transmission?
The Chinese embassy didn't respond to any specific allegations. Instead, they said that the program was bias ideology and fabrication in order to discredit China. And I don't think we've heard anything since. But Imperial University did say that Professor Guo, who we do raise concerns about in the film, is no longer associated with the university. But I can't say for sure whether or not that was directly because of our program.
Well, congratulations and well done.
A chilling tale of greed and murder is uncovered in Morocco, where a serial killer is captured by chance. The deadly greed.
لذلك فهنا من أجل أن لا يفتضح أمره فقد هذا هو تفكيره الشيطاني من أجل تصفيته من أجل حتى لا يفتضح أمره وهذا ما كان.
It's Brazil's biggest known sexual abuse case. A doctor who was doping, abusing and filming more than 30 victims. The story is told in The Predator Doctor.
A vítima da fita 15 tinha 15 anos.
Ele me avisou que eu seria anestesiado, que eu ficasse tranquilo, mas que esse medicamento poderia causar alucinações. Acordei nu. Tive que me vestir, minha mãe me ajudou e viemos embora para casa, Depois de dia, 2, eu fui me lembrar desses.
The Push, Murder on the Cliff, recounts the backstory and the trial of a husband accused of pushing his wife to her death.
So far as you're aware, was Fawzia someone who would use social media?
Yes, she did, yes.
Did her use of social media change at all while in the relationship with Mr. Anwar?
Yeah.
In what way?
She deactivated her Facebook account.
Why was that?
Because the accused said to her that I'm not on Facebook and it'll be good to just concentrate on the marriage.
A police officer traumatized from a previous hostage crisis races against time to prevent another catastrophe in The Negotiators.
Nalaman lang din nitong ating SWAT team na may mga tao doon. Then, na-evaluate nila, pwede natin gawin nang hindi nalalaman ng hostage taker. Plano namin yun eh. I'll continue to talk to Paray habang sila ay gumagapang para ma-divert nga yung attention at...
Month after month, beautiful women, all bearing a striking similarity to each other, are murdered. Yet the police are reluctant to admit that there's a killer in the city. The Goiânia serial killer.
Vanessa foi a única vítima em abril.
Normalmente ele matava quando a cobertura da imprensa cessava, quando ele percebia que ele tinha esfriado a cobertura da imprensa em relação ao caso que ele tinha praticado.
Só que naquela altura a repercussão das mortes não vinha só pelos canais oficiais, já estava no boca a boca da cidade.
Harnessing modern DNA techniques, detectives have been achieving what was previously impossible, identifying the perpetrators of serious crimes that happened years ago, solving Britain's sex crimes.
In this case, they have been extremely successful, and we obtained 2 separate male DNA profiles, one from the seaman, presumably the suspect, and the second from the victim himself. Once that was established, we loaded the DNA profile obtained from the seaman onto the National DNA Database.
Oh, it's pretty heavy stuff there. I think looking at programs like that, it makes me feel quite grateful that I live in Singapore, you know. Relatively low crime rate, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so the winner for crime documentary for a visually strong production with a compelling narrative that maintains suspense throughout is The Push, Murder on the Cliff. Congratulations. So I just found out that filming trials is allowed in Scotland. Yes. Yeah, but you went a bit further because you involved the lawyers as well. So help us understand, what was the biggest takeaway from this project?
Well, in the UK, you can only film in Scottish criminal courts. So we can't film in England or Northern Ireland or Wales. So, and you have to go through a really rigorous process to get permission to film in a Scottish criminal court. So that was a kind of an immense hurdle. But we were able to do that because we had the full support of Fozia Javid's family. So Fozia's family wanted this story to be told. They wanted people to understand that domestic abuse can happen to anyone. Fozia was an incredible woman. She was a solicitor from Leeds. She was 17 weeks pregnant, and through the course of her 9-month marriage, she was subjected to coercive control, domestic abuse, and honour-based violence. But Fozia was incredible because she was a solicitor. She recorded all that information. So all the information and all the evidence that was used in her own trial, she had gathered, and that was able to convict her husband of murder.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, and yeah, coercive control and all of that. I mean, watching it was difficult. But what has the audience reaction been so far?
The audience reaction has been really amazing, and I think, you know, we have to pay tribute to Fozia's incredible family. They were so brave. They wanted to highlight domestic abuse within their own community. They wanted to raise awareness of honour-based abuse. And off the back of this series, we have launched a campaign with our charity partner, Karma Nirvana, to campaign for a statutory definition of honour-based abuse in the UK, and that's called the Push for Change. It's currently, we're campaigning in Parliament at the moment, and we're really hopeful that that is going to happen so that statutory organisations, education, police, social services understand what the definition of honour-based abuse is. So, and Fawzia's mum, Yasmin, says that this series has saved lives already all over the world. She knows that people have left relationships as a result of what the family have done in this series.
Yeah, and it's not just women, men as well, as we have seen in the other videos.
Exactly.
It's very important work that what your videos you're doing.
Yeah.
Really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congrats.
Thank you.
On the battlefield, death is always just around the corner. Near Death, Warrior on Fire recounts remarkable stories of survival from military personnel who've come back from the brink to live their lives to the full.
The medics' phrasing just always stuck with me, was they were pouring sort of tepid water over me. And I remember one of the medics just saying that I'm essentially cooking and they just need to bring my body heat back down, not shock it down with freezing water, because then that could have had other medical implications.
At the age of 60, Sue Nelson was diagnosed with autism. Her mind's filled with a cacophony of sensory experiences, information and emotions.
Recently, I was at a concert in London. As the orchestra tuned up, my attention was everywhere but the stage.
10 lines between 90 degrees.
Observing the wires and lighting above, working out the angles radiating from patterns on the ceiling, counting the number of theatre boxes and the number of steps leading into the stalls.
Bacteria, infinitesimally small, yet without them complex life wouldn't exist. New technology is enabling bacteria to be studied more deeply. Bacteria, the tiny giants.
We think about evolution as incredibly important in the past, but I think what microbes show us is that evolution never stops. And in the real world, with things like antibiotic resistance, we see that evolution is an ongoing process. So evolution isn't just about what you see in the museums, it's about the changing world.
Ghorda Farid shines a light on the challenges faced by Iranian female athletes as they navigate the demanding world of sport.
یه وقتایی میشستم فکر میکردم تو خلوت خودم تو اتاق خودم گفتم اوکی خدایا تو منو خلق کردی و من این شکلیم و من نمیتونم کاری بکنم. هر کاری میکنم، هر چقدر تلاش میکنم، از این چیزی که هستم نمیتونم تغییر بکنم. تو منو اینجوری آفریدی، اوکی یه کاری بکن.
Since January 2022, conversion therapies have been banned in Canada. The practice often used cruel therapies to change the sexual orientation or gender of a person, causing wounds that affect them for their entire lives.
Ça crée beaucoup d'anxiété, mais c'est pourquoi est-ce que ça marche pas pour moi? Est-ce que Dieu m'aime pas? Est-ce que je prie pas assez fort? Est-ce que je suis pas assez une bonne personne?
C'était un enfer sur terre. C'était une guerre dans l'âme que j'ai portée 12 ans.
J'ai décidé à ce moment-là de mettre ses désirs avant les miens dans ma vie. Je me suis dit, Dieu, je veux m'abandonner complètement à toi.
Les thérapies de conversion dessus, donc je pense qu'il y a un danger de mort.
Psychedelic drugs have been illegal for 50 years, but now they're trickling back into the mainstream as they show promise in helping treat PTSD and other mental health issues. America goes psychedelic again.
Psychedelics connect us to ourselves, or sometimes to something outside of ourselves, which you could call God or nature or people. It cleans out the closet and it removes that pair of pants that you've been trying to put on again since you were 3 years old that just doesn't fit. And for a lot of people, it happens a lot faster than traditional therapy because we're going in and we're sandblasting the trauma.
A unique project in the USA is giving a final home to the homeless who are at the end of their lives or suffering a serious illness. Heaven's Gate looks at Salt Lake City's in-between, where homeless people can go to die quietly and with dignity.
I remember being in a $150,000 car driving down the street, looking at this park and saying, why don't they get those people out of there? It's a beautiful park. It's so disgusting. And why don't they clean themselves up? I would never want to be their neighbor. And that would be the park that I would live in.
Just shows you that life can turn in a flash. Now, the winner for this category, for what the judges had said, was that it was incredibly well-researched, produced, and presented documentary. So the winner is Inside an Autistic Mind. And, well, the thing is, Sue Nelson of Boffin Media, who made this program, she's not here tonight. However, earlier today, we asked her to say a few words, so let's listen in.
Hello, and thank you to the AIB for this incredible award. The aim of the doc was to share my personal experiences of autism, the good, the quirky, and the ugly. And the latter is one of the reasons I'm not here with you tonight in person. Like many autistic people, I have a huge issue with anxiety. And although people who know me professionally might not believe this, I lost 3 nights' sleep fretting and in an anxiety brain loop about the dinner, mainly because I was worried about being seated with people I don't know. So my apologies for not being there, but I'm so grateful to having made it, to the response it got from people around the world, including one woman who said that after listening to the programme, her autistic husband left the house to meet a friend for the first time in 5 years. So thank you, World Service, for letting me make it, and to the brilliant Anne McNaught for being an incredible producer.
Thank you very much, Sue Nelson, and being so brave and opening up and sharing with us the reasons why she is not here and not able to join us this evening.
Renowned medical journalist Dr. Michael Mosley had a battle with chronic long-term insomnia. He trials a pioneering 8-week sleep treatment program.
Feels like I'm fighting against my own biochemistry.
Everything's riding on it, my family life, my health, physical, emotional health, and also my career.
Guided by experts from Flinders University's Sleep Institute, we are going to take a dramatically new approach to our sleep and waking lives.
We're actually closer to a 70% sleep efficiency.
The bed gets a tick this time.
Thousands of families in Georgia were told their newborn babies were dead. In fact, they were being sold illegally on the black market. Many of the affected individuals are undertaking emotional journeys to find out how and why they were separated from their families.
Que j'ai pensé que ça me concernait qu'à moi. Et que je ne pensais pas qu'il y avait la réalité dans ce qu'elle m'a dit ma mère.
She suspects her mother was involved in other cases of baby trafficking, working with corrupt doctors and criminals.
There are hundreds of thousands of unsolved sexual offences lying dormant in the UK's police archives. Now, cutting-edge science is being employed to identify the offenders and bring them to justice.
My priority is my victim. I want justice for him. I want him to be believed. I would like the defendant to put his hands up, because throughout this investigation he has denied his involvement. He's denied the presence of his semen on those swabs that we took all those years ago.
Rape cases are one of the hardest things to prove or disprove.
In central India, there's a unique academy where indigenous tribal children are learning an ancient form of aerial yoga and gymnastics.
दोस्तों के साथ करते हुए देखा तो मुझे भी इंटरेस्ट आया कि मैं भी मलकम कर सकता हूँ, करने के लायक हूँ। तो मैं सर को पूछा कि जो गुरु हैं मनोज सर, उनको पूछा सर मैं भी मलकम करना चाहता हूँ। तो सर बोले हाँ ठीक है तो कल से आना बोले, इसलिए मैं अगले दिन जाने का स्टार्ट किया।
10 years ago, Natalie was diagnosed with MS. Confined to a wheelchair, she dreams of being able to walk again and is seeking a miracle. Could a pilgrimage to Lourdes be her salvation?
Ik ben eigenlijk gelovig, maar ik heb meer zoiets, ik geloof in het geloof, of dat nu God of Boeddha of Allah, maakt niet uit. Maar ik geloof wel dat er iets moet zijn. uiteraard hoop ik op genezingen.
COVID attacked every organ in Derek Draper's body. He was one of the worst affected patients in the UK, requiring constant care by his wife and specialist carers. Derek's story recounts the enormity of caring for a sick relative and dealing with a care system that's in crisis.
Oh, this is just amazing. It's not about Derek or me. It's about having a society where caring isn't a luxury. Please know there is an entire army of carers. Oh, gosh. We are all going to need it. We are all going to need it.
The climate emergency is exposing vulnerable populations in the developing world to damaging outcomes in terms of health, food, water, and education. Can a system actively responsible for creating the crisis fix it?
We have now crossed the threshold into human-induced climate change. We knew this for a very long time. They told us what was happening, but not all humans are equally responsible. Poor people emit, but they emit very, very little. They are not the ones who are causing the problem.
Oh, what a great selection of stories relating to health and social issues, all thoroughly engaging. Well, for its brave and immersive storytelling that draws the viewers in, the winner is Kate Garraway, Derek's Story. Well, unfortunately, Kate is not able to join us today, but we'll be sure to that she receives her trophy, which is a very heavy one, by the way. And we certainly wish Kate all the very best.
Al Jazeera's reporters have been on the front line in Gaza. Many of them personally affected by the horrors of the war.
No, it's okay. This is a missile attack on Palestine Tower, right in the middle of Gaza City.
Yumna, take a moment to breathe. Take a moment, you and your team, take a moment to breathe.
As Sudan continues to be a battleground for government and rebel forces, it's become something of a forgotten war, with the country's citizens bearing the brunt. BBC World Service has continued to report the story.
Pictures taken on his phone before he fled Darfur show dead bodies scattered in streets. Many appear to be civilians who have been burned, aid agency facilities wrecked, and perhaps most disturbingly, bodies dumped from a lorry into a mass grave.
The bloody armed conflict in Gaza has been covered for Romanian audiences by Antenna 3 CNN.
Am găsit un adevărat butoi cu pulbere, în primul rând. Am reușit să ne apropiem la doar câțiva kilometri de fâșia Gaza. Fâșia Gaza este undeva în spatele meu. Ceea ce vedeți tot în acea zonă sunt tancurile israelienilor blindate grele care au fost aduse în această zonă. Este doar una dintre liniile care au fost securizate.
An explosion of gang violence forced the downfall of the Haitian government, leading to a complete breakdown in law and order. CNN exposed the grim reality in Port-au-Prince.
At this intersection, we find another gruesome scene. 3 bodies, half-eaten by dogs and still smoldering. People desperate for food and for shelter, even if it is in the shell of what was once a government building.
Vietnamese people smuggling gangs are preying on people who are desperately seeking a new life in the UK. ITV News carried out an investigation.
Our contact borrowed £20,000 from loan sharks to pay the gangs that smuggled him. We first met in Vietnam and he told me he would have a dream life in the UK. Now we meet again. He tells me about the horrifying reality.
I was taken to a house that was being used to grow cannabis. The men there told me my job was to water the plants until I had paid off my debt.
CNN gave the world a comprehensive picture of the horrors of war unfolding in the Israel-Hamas conflict.
A man and a 13-year-old boy are wheeled in, both missing limbs, both in a perilous state. What's your name? What's your name? The doctor asks. The notes provided by the paramedics are smeared with blood. The tourniquet improvised with a bandage.
Reporting inside Myanmar is heavily restricted, but the BBC's Quentin Somerville and Darren Conway managed to spend a month reporting from the front line of this civil war.
So that's, I think 3 shells have come in the last 5 minutes, and you really get the sense of what this conflict is about, because that is a professional military over there, firing artillery, firing mortars. These men are irregulars. They're a strong alliance, a ragtag of rebel groups, and they've had a lot of success, but they're taking on a professional army.
Very good work there. Big congratulations to all the teams involved in bringing those news stories to us over the last year, day in, day out, working in this highly charged and perilous situations. And the winner for the 2024 Continuing News Coverage Award for Outstanding Journalism that tells the story of the hard-to-watch situation on the ground. And that goes to Al Jazeera English and War on Gaza. We're well aware that many Al Jazeera journalists were impacted by this war. Help us understand, I mean, what has it been like for the team?
It's not easy to cover a continuous massacre for over a year, that the teams in the ground could be part of it and victims of it anytime. We have correspondents who lost more than 18 persons from their families, fathers, sons, grandsons, but they continued to do the coverage, because the most important is we give the picture of the real conflict to the rest of the world. The world will not be able to know what's happening inside Gaza because there is no access there. And unfortunately, we used to cover the story from both sides, from Israel, West Bank and Gaza, but we are prevented from covering from inside Israel and West Bank by order of Israeli government now. And of course, that will make the story not complete, because we'd like also to see what's happening inside Israel as well as Gaza and West Bank. Yeah.
So do you then find that it is very hard to give that balanced voice, you know, or trying to stay sort of dispassionate in this situation?
No, we give balanced voice for sure. We cover the story from Gaza and we get voices from Israel, but that's from remote. It's different than being on the ground in Israel, knowing what's happening within the Israeli society, telling people how people think inside Israel about this continuous conflict and whether they know what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. Because as we understand, inside Israel, the picture is sanitized. Most of the people don't really know what's taking place inside the war zone, although they are subject to some attacks, but not to the extent that's happening in Gaza, West Bank, and in Lebanon now.
So what's the biggest impact you hope to make on the on viewers who watch your program?
The most important for the viewer, we just give them the correct information and they can make up their mind. We give them the objective, balanced information picture, and that's what we are trying to do.
Very good work, sir, and congratulations.
In Sudan, people are facing the world's worst hunger and displacement crisis. Newsday has been covering this forgotten war since it began in April 2023.
Is it a normal occurrence that people find guns strewn around and they just pick them up?
Oh yes, left over by the army or by the other group. But, you know, we got used to it now, all the gunshots and what have you.
Yeah, what are the kids up to every day? What is life like for them?
it's difficult. I mean, we've survived an airstrike on the 12th of October.
David Badil and Baroness Wasi discuss how Muslims and Jews are affected by the war in Gaza, balancing facts and analysis with moments of levity.
This comes back to Jonathan Glazer's point, because they do weaponise that. They do have a sense that they're acting on behalf of Jews in general. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the only way that Jews can be seen as a proper minority is if they're not continually associated with the actions of a state that is not the state that they are part of for most Jews around the world.
Since the attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, BBC NewsHour has brought its listeners a range of powerful voices from the very heart of the conflict.
The very first message Farida sent to the BBC 4 weeks ago.
Several of my friends locally are now missing, possibly dead. I don't know.
Even at that point, life had become desperate, surrounded by devastation.
Flying hospitals have been deployed to take the most seriously injured or sick patients from the war in Gaza to the UAE for treatment. Beyond the Headlines went on board.
We've broken it into 3 main sections. There are the patients that will need to come in and have stretchers, and they will come in through the high loader and the door. We've even selected the right doors because relevant to the type of loader that's used, and it's also sometimes relevant to the type of airframe that's used.
During a 6-day truce in the Israel-Gaza war, there was a glimmer of hope as a hostage and prisoner exchange was agreed, as BBC OS reported.
My colleague Lucy Williamson, who's been reporting from the Palestinian West Bank, she writes, a big crowd has gathered around the Red Cross vehicle at the Betunia checkpoint in the West Bank, where 39 Palestinians freed from Israeli prison are set to be released. Lucy says, we're hearing that the release of the Palestinian prisoners has been delayed due to scuffles between some Palestinian men and Israeli forces.
Iran's involvement in regional conflicts and its suppression of domestic dissent were explored in Flashpoint, Iran.
It's actually quite difficult to obtain information from a country where the individuals who are living there are persecuted heavily. I mean, there are individuals who have actually received long sentences for speaking to the media, for spreading news or sharing news.
The Story revealed detailed allegations of multiple sexual offences against British media personality Russell Brand.
I was sat up in the bed up against the headboard, and he forced his penis down my throat, and I couldn't breathe. It was just choking me, and I couldn't breathe. I was pushing him away, and he wasn't backing off at all. And so I ended up having to punch him really hard in the stomach to get him off.
My goodness, exemplary journalism right there, covering the news, digging into the stories across the globe, stories that matter. And for the winner, for what the judges told us was impeccably produced and presented rolling coverage, that goes to BBC OS, Gaza War First Hostages Released. Congratulations. Right over here. So trying to help us understand this, right? When you're trying to get the facts out and making sure it's accurate, at the same time, information is thin on the ground. How does your team going about making sure this hostage release story is being done well?
Let me put it this way. So look, OS I think speaks to the power of live linear output, especially without knocking digital or visual storytelling. Yeah. So essentially what we do, OS is the only radio program on BBC World Service Radio that sits in the central newsroom in our headquarters. So essentially, we're relying on the expertise of our international correspondents as well as our reporters around the world. So and you hear in that clip that you play, for example, Lucy Williamson, who was giving live updates on our BBC Live page in real time as the story was developing. So she would have fact-checked some of these stories or the lines before they would have put out. On the day that we were doing, on the day that the hostages were released, for example, our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, was on the floor. So we literally dragged her to the OS desk. And we are uniquely positioned to be able to do that because we are there. And Liz has remarkable relationship with political leaders in the Middle East, and so she's able to bring that depth to bear on our coverage. At the same time, we had, for example, Anna Foster, our Middle East correspondent, who was in real time in Tel Aviv with hostage families and able to talk to them for reactions to that developing story. So it's a combination of tapping into the best of BBC journalism and expertise, our reporters telling the story and reporting that on our live page, as well as the relationship that our producers have built. So right from the beginning of the war, for example, we have been in contact with and maintained a relationship with people impacted by this conflict across the divide. And we continue to hear from them about the impact it has made on them, and that's just some of the ways that we continue to tell the story.
There was a lot of balance in that program as well, that live program. So we had voices from Israeli families, hostage families, and we also heard from Palestinian families that were expecting their family to be released from jail. So it was a very balanced program as well.
Fabulous work there. Congratulations, BBC OS.
There are 7 nominees for our Emerging Talent Award in audio. Caleb Fotheringham of RNZ. Yumei Huang of RTI. Josefina Fuamoli from ABC Radio Australia. Xiumin Huang of RTI. Hannah Gelbert at BBC World Service. Meera Kumar, freelance producer. Wan Jen Lee of RTI.
In the first of the Emerging Talent audio title are making inroads on their new chosen career paths. So who will the award go to? Well, our judges decided on somebody who impressed them with a whole range of work and the way that they are embracing the medium of radio to connect with a varied audience. So I'm pleased to reveal that the 2024 Emerging Talent Audio winner is Josefina Fuamoli. Well, unfortunately, Josefina is not able to join us today because she couldn't travel out from Australia to be here tonight, but we did get her views on this award earlier today. So let's listen in.
Thank you so much for giving me this award for storytelling and putting the spotlight on musicians from right throughout our beautiful Oceania region and diaspora. This is really, really cool because I feel like musicians' stories are the ones that are so rarely told, and when they come from our smaller island nations, it's a very big privilege for me to be able to bring those to broader audiences, not only in Australia but beyond as well. Big thank you to the team who make all of this work, from Justine Kelly to Inga Stunsna at the ABC, all of our wonderful sound engineers who've really helped me punch up shows like On the Record and Sister Sounds to make them just sound as beautiful as they do. And big shout out to the musicians who've given me their time so candidly and so constantly. It's been beautiful to build a community of like-minded artists and to connect them with audiences right throughout the islands.
Congratulations again to Josefina.
2 journalists have made it to the shortlist of our Emerging Talent Award. First, from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, is Chris and Rita Leong.
Well, at this stage, it's hard to predict. We can expect some of these results to come out as early as Thursday, late Thursday. That's for the provincial counting. But in terms of the national counting, that would come out around Friday. But then
things have definitely picked up here, as you can see, in the heart of Solomon Islands, capital of Honiara. You see the flags, the float. Oh, that's my teacher from primary school just going by there.
Our second contender is Ayanda Charlie from BBC World Service.
What's been disappointing is that these people have taken that pain and created more pain. Scapegoating foreigners is not going to fix the drug issue. It's not going to fix crime. It's not going to fix unemployment or corruption.
Class, which in this country is so closely linked to race, class determines who has a better chance at safety.
Well, two strong contenders in our second emerging talent category, and this time for video, as you can see. So I'm very pleased to reveal that the 2024 Emerging Talent Video winner is Ayanda Charlie. Congratulations, stay put here, you're not going anywhere. So our judges said that you became a remarkable journalist in a very short time. How did that happen?
It's the people I worked with. I mean, I work with such experienced, generous people who, my director was Nick Blakemore, who isn't here tonight, but he's a very experienced journalist who really helped me feel safe enough to be in the moment because he had it down, but also when the camera was off, he was so generous with his experience, with his advice. He had really constructive feedback, and he allowed me to show up fully as myself. And so I owe it to all of my colleagues at BBC.
So I'm sure, you know, there are so many stories that you want to cover, but what is the one story that you're dying to cover, but you have not quite covered it yet, or haven't had the chance?
There's no one story. I think I always want to cover stories that feel like they capture the humanity of people, and it's really difficult with journalism because you feel like there's so much to consider. It has to be entertaining. There's, you know, social media and everything we're competing with. Yeah. Ultimately, stories that feel like they uplift and shed a light on Africans beyond what I guess the global society might be familiar with. That's always what I want to be able to do.
Well done. I look forward to more of your stories you'll be covering. Ayanda, ladies and gentlemen.
Congratulations to Ayanda and indeed to all the winners and the highly commended so far this evening, and to Otelli for taking us through the first part. We're almost over. Now, the awards that we've seen so far tonight are all in the gift of the judges. 56 people, good and true, around the world on 5 continents. But very occasionally, we at the AIB decide to give an award ourselves. And this year is one of those occasions, as we're presenting our Lifetime Achievement Award to a person that some of us in this room may have grown up with.
I'm not trying to scare myself, but most places would have the handrail there as well as here. But I suppose that's part of it. Wowee. After an hour of looking at them, I'm still none the wiser. as to whether we'll be allowed into the oil field. Thank you. I'd like to announce my resignation from television documentaries. That's from now. I'm going to work for the Northern Oil Company. There's a gap for me in the Department of Confusion. I have a very, very small desk which is upside down. 3 men bring me cups of tea every 17 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the AIB goes to Sir Michael Palin. Very many congratulations. I almost brought my Monty Python Papa Bock, wasn't it?
Really?
For you to autograph, but I forgot it in the end.
Well, it's about 50 years. I mean, it's a relic now, that book.
Well, yeah, I thought it might be worth, 27p more if you signed it,
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, you've had a remarkable career because you started off writing for the Frost Report in the 1960s.
Yeah.
You then did something small called Ministry of Silly Walks and Monty Python and things like that.
Yes, I paid my dues.
Yeah, but then in the latter part of the 6 decades, probably the last 4 decades, you moved into travel documentaries. What moments or projects have stood out to you particularly that you could think of tonight that you might want to share with the good and true people here?
Well, all of them are very special. I mean, Around the World in 80 Days, for which I was chosen to be presenter, but only after 5 other people had turned it down, including Noel Edmonds. Noel, are you here tonight? No, he's not here tonight. So, I was terribly fortunate to do that. The great thing was, about Around the World in 80 Days, that I realised as I made the series how I had to play it. And I couldn't be Alan Wicker, and I couldn't be Clive James. I had to be myself. And it took me quite a while to find this. And that was a great liberation. And in all the shows I've done since then, I felt most comfortable because I'm being myself. If people want to watch or not watch, that's up to them. But at least I'm doing it as honestly as I possibly can. And that's, going off and doing these journeys that I've done, these paid holidays. Thank you, BBC. Thank you, Channel 5. I still love doing them, and I think it's very, very important that we kind of understand each other. And the great and the wonderful things we've seen here tonight, and the films we've shown, the documentaries, we've heard the radio programs, is that this is a great mixture here of people who've made programs from all over the world. And I find myself looking at them and saying, yes, great, you've done that. I've never done that. What a good thing to say. But people have got to speak for themselves, and all the countries of the world. And we forget that we are not the center of the world. We contribute, but there are brilliant things made throughout the world today. And I think that's why these awards are so important.
So you say you had to find your own style. You couldn't be Alan Wicker, who, for those of you who don't know, was a...
Yes.
He was Alan Wicker. He was a travel reporter a long time ago who went around the world with Wicker's World.
Yeah.
Wonderful theme music. You should talk to the composer. But so who has been your inspiration? Has there been someone or something that has made you who you are when it comes to travel docs?
I don't know, really. I mean, you find your own way. And as I say, you've got to be yourself. And for me, it's been the teams I've been with have been absolutely terrific. And the cameramen, the directors and all that have brought things out of me that I never thought I could do. But I suppose if there's one example, I know it's rather corny, but it's David Attenborough, only because David has maintained his view of the world for so long. He's not tried to be something quite different. He's not gone on Strictly Come Dancing.
Does that mean you will?
I'm a celebrity. We're all too old now. I'm a
Speak for yourself.
Get me out of there. I mean, he seems to me to have been telling it like it is very, very well. He's very experienced. He's not trying to sort of build up his own sort of ego. He's just interested in the world and trying to get people to understand how things work. and how nature is, and the importance of the messages coming out at the moment about climate change and all that. So, I mean, David is absolutely part of the fact he's 98 and still standing in a swamp, you know, sort of watching frogs mate. I mean, you know, wouldn't we all like to do that? Yeah. And that's even without a film crew. That's just his hobby.
Okay, very quickly, what is the one thing that you want to do that you haven't done yet in terms of television documentaries? We heard you were almost going to resign when you were sitting outside that oil company in Iraq.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank God you didn't, because you went on to do Nigeria this last year. But what's... You know, tell the nice people at ITN Channel 5 what you want to do next.
Well, you know, I mean, they guide me around the world. I'm waiting for them to find somewhere really uncomfortable for me to go to. What I would like to do, and I never will now, is learn to speak a foreign language well, play the trombone, and dance. And maybe on this next thing we do, we can do all three.
It could be going back to flying circus
it could
material.
be, yes,
right.
yeah.
So, Michael Palin, congratulations. We've got a very small little extra gift for you. Anna Mazzotta, who has designed the new trophy that you're clutching in your hand, has a piece of artwork for you. Anna, bring it on.
And I look so young, you know.
Yes.
About it. Yeah, thank you very much. That's lovely. Oh, my cup runneth over. This is embarrassing. You know. Just came here for a drink.
You can go and have another one. Okay. Michael Palin, thank you very much indeed, and congratulations. And with that, despite the illicit photographer here, we've come to the end of the first part of the AIBs 2024. It's now, you'll be pleased to know, time for dinner and a little more refreshment. So, bon appétit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second half of the AIBs 2024. Are you all enjoying yourselves? Are you going to shut up now? Listen, we're all having a great evening, I hope. Congratulations to everybody who made the shortlist, let alone those who have got highly commended or have won here tonight. Very many congratulations to everybody. What should I say at this point? I don't know. It's all going very well, and there's lots more to get through in the next hour and 20 minutes or so before I hope you don't have to rush off and catch too many trains. And it's not snowing here at London at the moment, so we may be all right. Anyway, at the AIB, we've got a very small technical and camera crew who we built together over the last few years, who we rely on to deliver this event. This year, our cameraman Peter Lloyd-Williams is taking time off from his work to look after his wife Fiona, who was earlier this year diagnosed with a brain tumour. Fiona and Peter live in a small village south of London, where the local community, in particular those who drink in the local pub, have rallied round to support the couple who've been at the centre of village life for decades. They came up with a novel way to raise funds for a local hospice charity, a calendar where they bear all.
Find yourself in a room in a hospital with a stranger telling you that your wife has got a brain tumour and she's not going to get better. And you sit there and just the bottom just falls out of your world. Just life changes, just like that, in a blink of an eye. This is just sort of one way of helping to deal with it, I think, really.
The AIB is something of a family, and so we wanted to do our bit. And tonight we have the Offham Men's Calendar. It's the first time it's made it out of Kent. It's into central London. It's available to buy for £10. All the proceeds do go to the two charities that Peter and Fiona are supporting. It's a great cause. I think we'll probably have one or two in the office to plan the AIBs in 2025. And I'm sure that Ian Rumsey will be making a purchase or two. Ian worked at Meridian Broadcasting with Peter Lloyd-Williams, probably last century. Yeah. A couple of decades ago, it says here, give or take. So please follow Ian's likely lead, and thank you for supporting this. It's a good cause. We will take 5. Thank you. There you are. There's the first bid. Well done. We'll sort that out in a minute, Ian. So, thank you for that. Now let's pick up the rest of tonight's awards.
In 2024, the AIBs are searching for the best news explainer that helps people navigate often complex news stories. From Al Jazeera, the Israel-Gaza war.
Let's talk about what's happening in Israel and Gaza. It started early on October 7th. Hamas fired thousands of rockets into Israel and then sent hundreds of fighters over the border. They overran a border crossing and broke down the security barrier that surrounds Gaza with bulldozers. Some fighters were in vehicles, some even flew over on motorized paragliders.
CNA tells the history of the West Bank and explains the conflict between Israel and Hamas.
Violence in the West Bank has been growing steadily in the last 3 years. From an average of just 1 incident per day in 2021 to 3 just before the October 7 attack. But since the attack, the incidents have more than doubled to an average of 7 a day.
Bloomberg Economics crunched 50 years of data to explain why interest rates are likely to stay high and what it means for you and me.
A lot depends on the balance between saving and investment in the economy. If workers stash away more of their paychecks, the supply of savings goes up and the price of money goes down. On the other hand, if businesses build more factories or governments borrow to pay for new roads or schools, there will be more demand for savings.
CNN explained how gender plays a huge role in determining how women and girls will be affected by climate change.
In another study from India, Pakistan, and Nepal, a 1 degree Celsius rise in temperatures was also connected to an increase in violence against women. Women and girls who are forced to leave their homes because of the changing climate are also more at risk of violence.
While they sleep, wash, bath, or dress in emergency shelters, tents, or camps, the risk of sexual violence is a tragic reality of their lives as migrants.
Bloomberg explained how scrapping Japan's negative interest rate is disrupting lives across the country and beyond.
Well, here are some of the changes we can expect to see. First, mortgages will get more expensive for the first time in decades, and interest payments on the government's more than $8 trillion of debt, which is about twice the size of the country's economy, will increase. The same thing will happen to companies. It could also propel the yen higher.
Of media companies providing us with news explainers to enhance the viewers' understanding of the complex issues that we're facing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, the winner for providing a vivid picture of the situation in the West Bank goes to CNA's Israel-Hamas Conflict Explained. Woo! The occupation of West Bank. Something, eh? So Walter here, he's our editor-in-chief. Yeah, we know he's worked very hard. So help us understand this, right? I mean, when we're doing an explainer of this magnitude, well, so CNA is branded, or whether we're positioned as Understand Asia. So why is it necessary to do an explainer like this?
Good question. Yes, our mission is Understand Asia, but we come from Singapore, multiracial, multi-religious, and these global conflicts have a bearing on domestic politics, on domestic sentiment, and we are flanked by two neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia, which are majority Muslim populations. So it was an issue that while global, we needed to understand the sentiments within Asia and how they were seeing this conflict play out on the global stage. Explainers are great. I'm a big fan of explainers. I think sometimes our newsrooms get caught up in the breathlessness of the coverage, day after day, the bombings, the attacks. And we need to take that time to take a step back and set all of this in context, especially for our younger audiences, when we see that active news avoidance is becoming a real issue for us. These explainers are really that way of breaking through and having people connect with what we do and keeping us relevant to our audiences.
And you know, Walter, the thing is, we know like the situation in Gaza is complex, it's very sensitive, and obviously there will be a lot of challenges, covering stories like that. Can you just share some of that with us?
I think for this set of explainers, perhaps the most challenging part was the graphic nature of what was actually happening in the conflict. And for the mainstream broadcasters in Asia, a lot of us were unable to show what happened on October 7th in great graphic detail because it's free-to-air television. There are guidelines and restrictions on what can be shown, which is why we approached this explainer as a YouTube exclusive deal. And we put all of it onto YouTube, and YouTube then gated it and insisted on sign in for a certain age group. So that was one of the big challenges, was being able to show accurately what happened on October 7th. The other big challenge really was how do you stay balanced in conflict that is as complex as this? And that is really one of the big challenges, which took us a long time to go through every word, every image, and make sure that when we put it out, we could stand by it and say that, look, this is objective.
Thank you very much, Walter. Congratulations.
As tensions flared in the first days of the Gaza conflict, Palestinians and Hezbollah supporters rallied in Beirut, some trying to attack the US embassy.
We're worried. We'll be happy. We want this because we want to protect our neighbors. They are being killed and they're innocent people. We're supporting innocent people.
There's continuing confrontation in the resource-rich waters of the Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, where Filipino fisherfolk are defending their livelihoods against China's attempts to take over the fishing grounds.
It's almost imperceptible against the vastness of the sea, but you see those orange buoys there? Written on them is the Filipino phrase, "This is ours." And the release of those buoys by the coalition leading the civilian mission is a symbolic gesture to send the message that Filipinos should be free to fish where international law says they could.
A wedding celebration in Hamdaniya, northern Iraq, turned into tragedy when fire killed over 100 of the guests.
Fireworks were lit during the bride and groom's dance. The spark of the fireworks hit the ceiling of the hall while the bride and groom were dancing. The fire is believed to have been caused by the fireworks and exacerbated by the highly flammable ceiling panels. Within minutes, the hall looked like hell for everyone.
Over the course of a single harrowing night, Israeli forces used indiscriminate fire that killed half a family sheltering in central Gaza.
However it began, there's no doubt the Israeli military used ferocious firepower. The size of the bomb was by its nature indiscriminate, and survivors say they were not warned to leave by the military, as it claims it always tries to do. In response to extensive questions from CNN, the IDF claimed it told civilians to leave in the days before the deadly incident, but provided no evidence when asked.
The arrest on rape charges of Northern Irish political leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson started as a late-night rumour, but it quickly became a political whirlwind, stunning the province.
And this is a crisis, no doubt, but how destabilising is this for the DUP, for unionism as a whole?
Well, this is unprecedented, Catherine, for any party, I think, in Northern Ireland to lose a leader under such circumstances, especially a leader like Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, who was at the peak of his powers. He had managed to steer his party back into the power-sharing institution to Stormont, despite grave resistance from many of his MPs and peers.
From the early hours of October the 7th, TRT World has covered developments in Gaza, reporting from the heart of an ever more intense conflict.
The crisis of overflowing morgues and unidentified remains that are filling mass graves in the entire Palestinian enclave. And what makes things worse for Palestinians here is that families of these people didn't even have a chance to say goodbye.
Some remarkable reporting there on some of the major stories we're covering for the past year. So, ladies and gentlemen, the award goes to reports that the judges said had excellent writing and camera work throughout. And the winner is how indiscriminate Israeli fire killed half a family in Gaza. So congratulations. Wonderful work you've done there. This is a harrowing story to tell, you know, and I'm curious to know. It was discovered by one of your camera crew, right? Who was following up with that story. If you could just take us through some of the steps you did, you know, with the investigation and all of that. Who's going to do it? All right, go for it.
Yeah, it was really a chance encounter, as you say. I mean, we had an interview with this young woman in a hospital, and that was kind of all we had. And then it was a couple days later that same cameraman, Mohammed Al-Swalhi, found what we discovered were the remains of many of her family members. And it was only because of that we got the first kind of thread to be able to tell this story. And it shows how difficult it is in Gaza, where journalists from outside Gaza don't have access to be able to tell these stories. And Roba's story is one of hundreds, thousands that are basically impossible to tell because of that.
And I just add that Roba's story has been told purely because of the tenacity of our colleague Abir Salman, who really just tracked her down and spent days and days and days of looking through really harrowing footage of the massacre that happened there. And she was the one who chanced on her ID. And she made the connection of, this ID has the same name on it as the young woman we interviewed in the hospital. And that's how the story came together, because she was the one who spotted that and followed up.
And it should be our colleagues, Mohammed Sawalhi and Tariq Al-Hilu, who are in Gaza, who should be here today to receive this award for everything that they continue to do for more than a year, risking everything to allow us to tell the world what is happening inside Gaza. And we would not have been able to do this without them. And, we'll take a moment also to pay tribute to the more than 100 Palestinian journalists who have been killed in Gaza.
And I think with this particular investigation, it showed there was still that element of a very caring approach, in how you approach that story. And I'm wondering when you like day in, day out, you're going through, how do you get through that? How do you keep going? How do you make sure that you have to be caring, but at the same time sort of like distance yourself? Is that how it works?
What we try to do, and we've done it with this report and others, is really focusing on trying to tell people's stories and reminding people around the world who are watching these stories and following a war that people are not numbers, and making sure that we are able to bring people, just really humanizing these stories and trying to make people understand these personal stories. And we did this with Ruba's story and others. And, after we did this piece, the Qatari government evacuated Ruba from Gaza. She got to Doha, where she got a surgery, and she has received a prosthetic eye. And that is obviously one thing that she lost on that day, but she lost half her family. She lost her siblings, and we managed to meet her.
Actually, my hair is standing as you're speaking. I think this is a reminder once again that that's why you do what we do, right?
And that's definitely what drives us. But, meeting her in Qatar a few months ago, it's not just about getting out of Gaza and, getting the prosthetic eye. It's also the fact that you see that people's lives have changed in ways that none of us will ever understand. And it's losing, her brothers and sisters, her family. And it's just very important that when we tell these stories that we continue to bring our viewers the personal stories.
So keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
As the Solomon Islands prepared to go to the polls back in April, what were the key issues that mattered to the people there?
In terms of health, this is what we get, and it's really sad, because maybe for those with money, they could afford to go to hospitals overseas. Meanwhile, for majority of us, we're stuck here. People should choose their leaders, the next members, wisely.
Korea's general election results were presented in a dynamic way, harnessing animation and other unusual techniques as the polls closed.
네, 다음 지역은요. 충남 보령 서천 역전. 네, 국민의힘 장동혁 후보 49.6%로 1위입니다.
자, 치열한 레이싱이 펼쳐진 다음 지역구 확인해 보겠습니다. 충남 논산, 계룡, 금산. 자, 역전이 발생했는데요.
The highs and lows of Sierra Leonean politics and the personal cost of life in the political limelight are explored in Mayor on the Frontline, Democracy in Crisis.
People were gathering at our party office to start that,
just gathering, and the police opened fire and they've killed someone already. I'm on my way there. Is that bulletproof vest still available?
Yes.
I pass and take care. I'm on my way to the party office now.
Resistance to Myanmar's brutal military rule continues. But what does it take to train as a soldier and survive in the jungle whilst having the commitment that you'll defeat the junta? Former political prisoners, human rights defenders and former security officials reveal how the increasingly repressive security apparatus operates in Lukashenko's Belarus.
Журналіста «Свабода» Олега Груздзіловіча арыштавалі ў 2021 годзе, асудзілі на 1,5 года зняволення. Ён выйшаў на волю ў верасні 2022. Больш за 3 месяцы палітвязень правёў на Валадарцы.
Заворот на тыл, распранание догола, руки за спиной, команды вельми жесткие, ставление.
Fabiola Campilai was blinded by a tear gas canister fired by police during Chile's 2019 uprising. She became Chile's first blind senator and is now fighting for justice for those who've suffered police brutality.
Cuando estoy en estas reuniones me duele el alma, porque pienso, ¿por qué estoy aquí? Porque mi hermano murió y no va a volver nunca más. Él se llevó lo mejor de nosotros. Mi hermano salió en la noticia que era el último calcinado por saquear y robar el consumar. No, mi hermano no fue un ladrón. Y ahora está con sus papeles manchados.
Film series The Democracy worked with animators, musicians, composers, novelists and poets to create engaging debate around democracy, rights, freedoms and power.
There are also 2 arrows going down towards chaos on left and right. Upset the balance of the temperate zone, find yourself in a civil war, witness a breakdown of the institutions that keep things running, the supply chain, the tax department, health care, the schools, and chaos will be the result.
All I can say is that politics has never been so interesting. Can't wait for like 2025. So, all right, so the winner for a truly dramatic political story told with great excess is Mayor on the Front Line, Democracy in Crisis. You guys are twinning tonight. Was that intentional or
we tried to pick something different, but we came the same.
You came the same. Well done. I like the look. It's a good look. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about Yvonne Aki-Sawyer and tell us why is it important to tell her story. There we go.
Yvonne Aki-Sawyer is the mayor of Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone, and she's also made a name as a climate change champion. She's been trying to plant 1 million trees around the city. Her attitude is very much that Sierra Leone is not an emitter. It's not going to stop climate change, but in order to make her city more resilient, they need to kind of plan for it. And so we're interested to see, with close access, what it's like for a kind of global south political leader trying to solve climate change. And there were kind of elections coming up that year, so we followed her through the election campaign and saw a lot of the intimidation and violence that a kind of female politician can face whilst doing this work.
Can you elaborate on that? You talked about all the violence and...
Yeah, sure. I mean, she's the highest elected woman in Sierra Leone.
And after one of the scenes in the film was a day after the election, we were filming at the opposition party office. It was a celebratory mood. People were dancing in the street. And then we heard gunshots and tear gas. She ended up on the floor with her daughter, who's asthmatic, kind of fearing for their lives and very, very, very scared. And that was just, you know, we were incredibly scared filming that, but she kind of took it in her stride, like, you know, this is the reality of what it's like. But one of the amazing things with her is at the end of the film, it ends with this line like, I need to go back to work. So despite all of that, despite everything she faced, the fight for Sierra Leone, for climate, for democracy, she felt was bigger than all of that, and she went back, and she's there now doing great work. So.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. I have to go back to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Nowhere in the world has been affected by climate change as severely as the Pacific, and the people of the region are facing the threats head-on by creating their own solutions. Climate Manor.
He comes from a long line of hunters of turtles, but he also comes from a long line of chiefs. And I guess when you're a chief, you're in the traditional Pacific Island sense of it, you're chief over everything, you know, the species around you, the people that live with you. And so I get, it's the only explanation I could come up with why he and others like him were able to switch to be protectors and guardians.
Across the world, millions of women and girls face discrimination and worse because of their gender. People Fixing the World looks at projects designed to change attitudes.
This project is getting young people, men especially, to do exercises that show the burden women have and how they are undervalued in society, right? I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, it sounds great, and I personally would like to try this with my own family. But is this the only activity that they do?
So there's this other exercise they do with a mixed group.
In Taiwan, cultural rights equity has emerged as a significant issue. The country's venues and government are working to ensure that everyone can enjoy a cultural life. Taiwan's cultural rights.
的方式他可能不一定喜欢。他们最终在这个戏里面提出了一个最大的问题是，面对未来的 AI， 我们都有不如 AI 的地方，或者是我们都有跟 AI 不一样的地方。它反应那么快，你就是脑袋没有办法想得跟它一样快的时候，那你是不是也一定程度的被视为身心障碍者呢？
Is it possible for music to inspire us to take ownership of what's happening to the climate and imagine and shape a better future for us all? We only want the earth.
Tide Quartet is a piece where a string quartet sit on chairs in the sea playing their instruments, and the tide comes in starting from foot depth till it reaches each player's neck, and then each player wades out of the sea when it's up to their neck. I've quite often just described that piece to people, and I can see in their eyes that they understand the piece, you know.
Bangladesh's clothing conundrum investigates how the country's garment industry is becoming safer and greener, yet still managing to undercut much of the competition.
So who should be paying the price to ensure the garments made in Bangladesh are truly sustainable? Everyone, says factory owner Muhammad bin Qasim, including big Western brands.
Sustainability comes with a cost, and buyers will be a part of it. I firmly believe that we are not asking for a huge amount. They have to bear the cost.
Well, 5 strong productions there covering issues in different parts of the world, underscoring the truly global nature of these awards. And in fact, I was told that one judge said that the winner presents a unique take on solutions through a calm and sobering reflective piece. And the winner is We Only Want the Earth. Well, unfortunately, the makers of We Only Want the Earth, they can't be here tonight, but we asked them about their inspiration for the program, and here's what they have to say.
Hello, I'm very sorry I can't be in London tonight for this award, and I'm really grateful and honoured for the recognition from the AIBs. With We Only Want the Earth, we wanted to explore how composers from Ireland were dealing with the climate and biodiversity crisis in their music. and really see if music and sound can help us face up to the challenges of the climate emergency. While we often think of the climate and biodiversity crisis from a scientific and societal perspective, which can often be overwhelming for many, music and art can help us to understand and also bring us together in ways that no other field can do. I hope that We Only Want the Earth succeeds in showing the power of music and sound in helping us navigate our transition to a carbon-free world. I'd like to thank my co-producer Helen Shaw for all her invaluable support and guidance, Ono Kelly in RTE Lyric FM for commissioning the series from us, and all my colleagues in the Contemporary Music Centre Ireland. Thank you and have a good night.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Congratulations once again.
Borneo is in a permanent state of ecological crisis, with climate change and deforestation causing immense problems. Can one woman's efforts save her village from going up in smoke?
Nowhere to hide from the poisonous air. It's like we are in the war. But that's also the time where I decided to take this seriously. Kami ini adalah rakyat. Kami ini adalah orang-orang yang membutuhkan perlindungan.
Is green hydrogen the fuel of the future, destined to power cars, trains and trucks? To what extent can it actually be produced?
Les protons, eux, traversent la membrane et rejoignent l'oxygène pour former, devinez quoi?
C'est étonnant, hein? De l'eau.
S'il y a un endroit où j'aurais jamais imaginé me retrouver en travaillant sur l'hydrogène, c'est bien ici. Je savais pas, mais une des façons de fabriquer de l'acier, c'est avec de l'hydrogène. Beaucoup d'hydrogène.
Apocalyptic forest fires, storms and floods exacerbated by climate change are threatening communities and the most iconic species in Australia.
This animal is a symbol of this country.
It's an iconic species.
Is it in trouble?
It's very much in trouble. Highly endangered. It may, well, we're seeing it going locally extinct in different populations on the East Coast.
With the climate in Brazil becoming increasingly unbalanced, entire populations in remote areas of the Amazon are being driven into exile.
Eu nasci no período que o Acre era mata bruta. Só era mato. 43, o Acre era seringal. O clima era diferente, era bem suave, a gente não sentia essas coisas assim, né? Foi essa mudança climática que mexeu com a natureza e ela tá dando troco, né?
As humankind faces its greatest challenge in the modern era, can our civilization adapt to the myriad challenges that are fast unfolding?
If climate change meant only that the oceans would rise as Greenland melts, perhaps we could adapt. But it has another nasty surprise in store. The Gulf Stream system has for 3 million years made Western Europe temperate and its seasons largely predictable. But Greenland's melting ice sheet has thrown a spanner into the conveyor belt of the ocean's currents.
Mineral-rich Homenon Island in the Philippines is being plundered by large-scale industrial mining companies. The impact is seen in the dwindling crop of the local calamansi tree.
Kahit na hindi malayo pa yung alikabok, maabot dito. Halimbawa yung mga bulaklak, pag tinaktakan niya ng alikabok, hindi nabubuhay.
Ang galing ng katas ng kalamansi pala.
Ang benta raw nila ng kalamansi, 65 to 80 pesos kada 100 piraso.
Ito lang talagang hanap buhay namin. Ano epekto sa inyo nitong pagmimina? Masisira ang alikabok.
Oh, that's certainly one reason why we should all be washing our fruits and vegetables. I don't do that enough, but I need to start doing that. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the winner in a sustainability video for what one of the judges described as a compelling piece of work that clearly illustrates the challenges affecting people And for this award, I would actually like to invite Cheryl Lai. She's the chairperson of RTI, to come on stage, because you're going to be presenting the award to... The winner is Climate Exiles in the Brazilian Amazon. Photo of you, just make sure, looking dapper, that's right. Congratulations. I believe you've flown all the way from Brazil. Is it like a, 14-hour flight?
Yeah. For me, it's more important, this documentary was to give a voice for traditional people who are suffering with drought and flood in Amazon, because they lost everything the last year.
Right. And when you met these people, I mean, what was the biggest takeaway when you met them, you spoke to them, I mean, these people that lost everything that they've had? Yes,
this moment, many people are living the shelter or in the parents' houses. Then the situation is not good for them.
And when you cover stories like that, right, I mean, what sort of impact would it have on you and your colleagues? I mean, what are the unforgettable moments where you're going to take this with you to your grave?
I don't know. The government nowadays in Brazil is trying to change the situation, but the next year in Brazil will happen the COP30, and probably many countries will discussing about these issues. But I would like to use a phrase from the of the indigenous, very known in Brazil and around the world, Ayrton Krenak. He tells, the nature can only stay balanced with the power of the biomes. That's it.
Thank you very much for sharing. Congratulations once again. Thank you.
As thousands of migrants continue to make the perilous journey across the English Channel, have we reached a point of no return as to how Europe and the UK treat illegal migrants?
Mais il y a quand même beaucoup de cas de violence. Par exemple, ce matin, on a vu la police partir à fond dans les champs avec le buggy, des gens avec les boucliers, avec les casques, avec les lanceurs LBD, donc c'est des boules de plastique. Il y en a avec les armes, alors que souvent, en fait, c'est des pauvres gens.
Is it possible that there's an intersection between long COVID and neurodivergence, with long COVID sufferers more likely to be diagnosed with autism and ADHD? 5 News investigated.
Since I've got long COVID, those symptoms were sort of amplified hugely, so I was struggling a lot more with what I now know are ADHD symptoms than I was prior to the illness, definitely.
She thinks knowing will be key to helping her ongoing recovery. We even managed a paddle in the sea. It might be March and freezing, but if long COVID teaches you anything, it's that these moments are there for the taking.
Iceland is reputed to be one of the happiest nations on earth, yet the country has the highest rate of antidepressant use anywhere in Europe.
Me and my sister, we both take it, and some of my friends take it as well, so it's definitely a pretty common thing.
In rural Iceland, are there alternatives to antidepressants?
Not really. There's not a good access to therapists. It's very difficult to get an appointment. It can be super expensive.
Half of the recorded teenage mothers in the European Union are in Romania. Antenna 3 CNN looked at the reality of children raising children.
Cosmin are doar 17 ani și este din comuna Hilișeu, județul Botoșani. Bebelușul are deja 3 luni. Când a rămas însărcinată era în clasa 10-a și spune că lucrurile ar fi stat altfel dacă cineva ar fi învățat-o mai bine.
2 săptămâni am plâns foarte mult pentru că nu știam ce să fac și am zis că decât să iau viața unui copil, mai bine să crește cum se poate.
What's it like to be a young Indian who defies the norms of society and dares to dream of personal fulfillment?
I was like, एक poetry competition, and he was like, नहीं, नहीं करना अभी, पढ़ाई पे ध्यान दो. नहीं हम बताते हैं, और ये समय आने पे तो बताना ही होगा, लेकिन ये उसमें तब तक अगर स्ट्रांग हो जाएंगे तो बताने में भी थोड़ा अच्छा लगेगा. अभी ऐसा डर लगता है कि अगर कुछ बोले तो पहला स्टेप में ही वो चीज़ को.
In crisis-torn Sierra Leone, the proliferation of a dangerous drug known as Kush threatens to devastate the youth population. VOA 52 documentary looked at the issue.
My friends, loved ones, even elementary kids, most of them are addicted into drugs, especially Kush. Most of them will die. Most of them are homeless. What the future holds for this country if emergency action is not taken?
Australian priest Father John Wotherspoon settled in Hong Kong and founded a charitable canteen and dormitory to help the homeless and rehabilitated offenders. Phoenix Satellite Television tells his story.
我哋餐廳請員工好特別嘅，我哋唯一嘅條件係一定要坐過監，要有案底我哋先會請嘅。咁因為我哋都好想俾多啲唔同嘅工作機會俾一啲更新人士啦，因為佢哋出嚟就真係好難揾工作。
有啲人講笑喺後邊我哋餐廳去一個牌 vacancy criminal record required.
It's estimated that a child goes missing every 8 minutes in India. Efforts to find them focus on the railways. On assignment from ITV.
His story is horrifying. Kidnapped from his village by a stranger and bundled onto a train.
वहाँ पर और लोग नहीं थे दिन का समय था वहाँ पर तो और लोग नहीं थे
बहुत लोग थे वो तो कह रहे छोड़ हाथ खींच रहे थे मेरा छोड़ ही नहीं रहा था.
A wide range of shorts there, allowing us to travel the world and get close to all these interesting stories we're seeing. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner in our short documentary category for a brilliantly insightful, fascinating, hard-hitting documentary that goes to Generation Kush. So I have to say the Kush epidemic in Sierra Leone is quite horrifying. And it's this synthetic drug that's sort of made of human bones. I was reading about it. And it's interesting that you interviewed the man Sahid, right, who's trying to combat this epidemic. So what was it like trying to piece together this story?
Well, there were many news reports already on the topic of Kush. And when I heard about the story I wanted to tell it in a different way because there are so many young people like Sahid who are actually standing their ground.
Trying to make a difference.
They're trying to make a difference, exactly. And they are training other former addicts, sisters of addicts, mothers of addicts, daughters of addicts, trying to change the situation where there's very little hope. And I think I wanted to show what young people on the ground can actually do.
And I'm very heartened. I'm seeing a young person like you. You're still so smiley and you're so energetic, covering a depressing story like this. What was your biggest takeaway?
I guess I just said that young people on the ground are actually the ones who are doing the amazing work. I think there are so many international organizations, there are so many NGOs that are working in countries like Sierra Leone. But what I found really striking was that it's people who have no money, who have no support, who have nothing, who literally just show up with a piece of paper and say, look, we want to solve this issue, we're going to do this, and they make it happen. I think for me that was really
incredible.
Really striking.
That's incredible. Keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
How is it that Saddam Hussein who was born into relative poverty in an obscure part of the country, managed to seize power in Iraq. Faces recounts his story.
قريبه أحمد حسن البكر عمل صدام على تحسين الأوضاع في العراق بجانب توطيد سلطته. عمل صدام على رفع مستوى التعليم والصحة والخدمات كالكهرباء والماء، لكن وقف التمويل كان عقبة في مشروع صدام لتطوير بنى العراق التحتية.
At the height of their conflict with Great Britain, the IRA made an extraordinary decision to record on film how its gunmen and bombers planned and carried out attacks. Then the film disappeared for 50 years.
As the unmistakable figure of Martin McGuinness.
I think it was Bo himself said, "We're going to show you something that's never been seen before. The first filming of a car bomb the IRA has ever set off. They'd stolen a car from a carpet salesman."
England, the 15th century. Exactly what happened to the princes in the Tower? Did Richard III orchestrate the brutal murder of the two young princes to seize the crown for himself?
So what evidence do you have that they were murdered?
This is an account written at the time by an Italian monk visiting London. He was called Dominic Mancini. So he talks about those two princes conducted into the more inward apartments of the tower itself, and day by day came to be observed more rarely through lattices and windows.
Pornography, gambling and drugs were rife in Kowloon Walled City, a lawless enclave within Hong Kong. What was the city really like, and how did it become such a legendary den of iniquity?
一切要追溯到19世纪60年代末，当时的港督麦当奴开放赌禁，香港赌场遍地开花。5年后，港督更换，港府突然宣布禁赌，大批香港赌商便将目光投向了九龙寨城。
Following the split between Moscow and Belgrade in 1948, Italians were interred in the gulag of Goli Otok, the barren island. It was a place of political re-education and the annihilation of humanity.
Quel passaggio in mezzo a uomini che ci sputavano addosso e ci picchiavano era detto Crosstroy.
Ad un certo momento non ti fidavi più di nessuno. Se qualcuno ti diceva o raccontava qualcosa, dovevi riferire subito. Un sistema allucinante che purtroppo veniva attuato quasi da tutti.
For so long believed to be bit players in histories dominated by men, some queens wielded extraordinary power. How did these women sovereigns assert their authority? And was being a woman sometimes an advantage?
She is effectively ruling Egypt in every possible way, but it's a temporary kind of power. It's power with an expiration date, effectively.
But it seems Hatshepsut has no intention of stepping aside when Thutmose III comes of age. In fact, she's already promoting herself.
So good to see that women have been demonstrating their power across the ages, even though a bit of deviousness is involved. Yes, yes, yes. So the judges have awarded the prize to a film that basically keeps the viewers intrigued with deep research and kind of makes you feel like you're watching a thriller, right? So that prize goes to The Princess in the Tower, The New Evidence. Take us through, like condensing, I believe it's Philippa Langley's Missing Princess project. It's quite a massive piece of work, right? How did you condense it all into this program?
Before we start talking about Princess in the Tower, can I take 2 minutes just to talk about these awards? Because one of the things that's really humbling about sitting in the audience here is actually you realise the scale of the international journalism that's working on an international stage
Yeah,
here.
well said, well said.
And
yeah.
at a time when we are all under pressure, at a time when wherever you are in the world, actually freedom and freedom of speech and journalism matters most, actually to take the time to actually enjoy ourselves tonight, but actually to celebrate the kind of journalism that's going on around the world. It's a humbling experience sitting in the audience. And actually, I just want to pay tribute to everybody else who, like us, are trying to do the good work and actually trying to catch the truth at a time when journalism is under attack. And I think that's a really important thing to say. And well done for Simon and the team here. So documentaries like this, I think, are really more important now than they've ever been. And I think they're more important now because of I think what we have to say that's away from the news agenda. We are able to say things that people don't want to say sometimes. We're able to ask questions of history because basically the story of history in this film is that the people who win determine history. And actually those that win rewrite it. So the story of the Princess of the Tower is actually that Henry VII basically wiped the record clean. The Princes of the Tower were never murdered. They survived, they existed, they'd led 2 rebellions. But actually the point of it is that actually that Power and Henry actually decided that that was not the record. So they were labelled as pretenders. It took 2.5 years to bring this to screen. It took a further 1.5 years to persuade anybody to commission it.
Oh, wow.
Everybody turned it down. I went back 3 times to ask people to...
And here you are now with the award.
And
I mean,
here
what
we are.
say?
But all I can say is that whatever you do, keep plugging away because one day the truth will out.
Thank you very much. Very well said.
As Australia's first radio station turns 100, Overnights examines how much radio has changed, both on air and behind the scenes.
Free broadcasting, the newspapers proclaimed. News and entertainment for nothing. Big concert tonight. News, though, was still mostly confined to just 2 major bulletins a day, with 2-minute updates on the hour. One of those updates became very famous, or perhaps infamous.
The Bengal famine of 1943 claimed the lives of around 3 million Indians, all British subjects. It's one of the largest losses of civilian life on the Allied side, yet there's no memorial to this disaster. 3 million.
The colonial government was printing money to pay for all the extra resources, issuing a sterling IOU to be paid after the war, and inflation was rife. The loss of Burma's cheap rice put this staple food even further beyond reach for many of Bengal's poorest people. And then things got worse.
1969. 14 black players of the Wyoming Cowboys were planning to wear black armbands for a game against Brigham Young University. But Brigham Young is run by the Mormon Church, and that still had explicitly racist policies. The Black 14.
If you like black, they wanted more out of us. It seemed like I was drilled harder, I think, than anybody else, I felt. He threw balls at you, made drills. If you dropped the ball, he made, like, guys line up, you got to go through, and they slap, actually almost punching you and slapping the ball out of your hand.
Military deceptions play an essential role in combat. On the 80th anniversary of D-Day, SITREP examined how Germany was convinced the Allied invasion would take place 150 miles away from the Normandy beaches.
There was also Operation Titanic. It was one of my favourites. The dummy paratroopers that were known as Ruperts that were being dropped to draw German forces' attention away from actual landing zones. And when you go and see the Ruperts, there aren't many of them left. They're only 3 feet tall, but in the sky they look really realistic. And they were dropped also with sounds as well.
As French rail company SNCF bid for lucrative high-speed rail contracts in the United States, one Holocaust survivor fought to hold the train company accountable for its role in transporting 76,000 Jews and others to concentration camps during World War II, covering their tracks.
When the woman with the crutch on that train told Leo, "Go live and tell this story," she was echoing what Leo's own mother had told him the last time he saw her in Vienna. Never forget who you are. Never forget. Storytelling is central to our identities and to our collective memories. Leo had picked up on the essential link between storytelling and remembering.
Van Gogh, Vermeer, and Frida Kahlo rose to fame only many years after they died. Dead Famous explores how they became some of the best-known artists in the world.
In 1945, Vermeer was well known. There was huge demand for his work, and so he was particularly attractive to forgers, especially because his life was shrouded in mystery.
There's a myth around this painter. And how did he work? Did he use this? Did he use that? Also, there was no early period. So where did he come from? Who was this man? And that is also what triggered forgers.
Well, half a dozen varied historical stories in our audio category, crossing the world from Australia to the United States of America. And the winner of the award goes to a production that judges described as a lasting audio memorial to those who perished. And the winner is 3 Million. So it's really quite interesting that this testimony was searching out for eyewitnesses and survivors. I'd imagine it's a very difficult task because it's only been like 80 years since the famine.
So the story was of the Bengal famine where 3 million people died, and it's one of those extraordinary things that the people who died were British subjects. They were Indians, and they died because of the Second World War. And when we talk of the Second World War, we never talk of these 3 million people that died. And it's 80 years on, and there isn't, astonishingly, even a kind of plaque to these people. And so I was trying to kind of rewrite the story through those first-person testimonies, because this is the last possible moment to do it. Yeah. So it was really hard, but there were people who I found who were eyewitnesses, but also who were survivors, and I found them deep in the Bengali countryside. But I also went to the archives, and in sitting in the archives are audio testimonies. It's just that no one had ever unearthed them.
And I think it's really sad that, there's no memorial for the 3 million who died, right? So how do you hope your program will help impact or make a change going forward?
Well, I hope that when we think about the Second World War, that we remember these 3 million people that died. But what I realized was that famine has a really enduring legacy, and there are famines, or the prospect of famines, happening today in the world in places like Sudan and Gaza. This isn't history, and so we need to learn from history. But we also, as a country, there are difficult bits of our past, and this is probably one of the most difficult bits for us, because some people say it implicates Winston Churchill, but we have to, as a country, be able to talk about these hard bits, because it's 80 years on, and we should be able to do that.
And you have clearly done that with your program. Thank you very much for the good work.
The cult of T.B. Joshua exposes the faking of miracles that led to unnecessary deaths and a culture of rape, torture, and violence, all perpetrated by one of the world's most powerful religious figures.
I was hearing things, this happened to me, he tried sleeping with me. Accounts firsthand of people who had experienced sexual abuse. I couldn't take it anymore.
Singapore has been grappling with a growing rat infestation, But there's little information available to the general population on this public health issue. With the help of its audience, CNA set out to rectify this.
I've got a radical idea. Tell me where you're seeing rats, give me the exact location, date, time, got photos and videos too, even better, send them my way. My squeaky plan is to map out rat activity across Singapore.
Imagine moving into your new home only to find out it's about to be demolished because the developers decided to cut corners and not follow the plans. That's what happened in Woolwich in southeast London, as Joris Lechen uncovered.
How can I explain what happened? You know when you order something on wish.com and then what comes in the mail looks nothing like what you thought you'd get? The property developer basically pulled a wish.com on Greenwich Council and the residents. The council approved the development with glass cladding and they delivered orange and grey metal instead. The glazed curtain wall facade tilted like a sail. They painted it on instead.
Okay. So before you buy a new home, do check out the local rat map. Apparently it is a thing, as I just found out over there in that clip. So the winner for compelling storytelling and excellent presentation, that goes to Disciples, the Cult of TB Joshua. TB Joshua, I was watching some of his footage and he's quite an interesting character. Tell us, the impact of the series and what's happened to TB Joshua.
I might just say that Ray spent 12 years of her life there, so she's probably the best person in this room to talk about that.
Pass her back the mic.
God, I'm probably going to say something inappropriate, but he's actually
Go
dead.
for it. It's Friday night. We're allowed to.
He's dead, and I'm not going to say I'm sad about that.
Right.
He passed away about 72 hours after we got the green light on the documentary, but he is, he's passed away.
Okay.
And I don't know what else to say about that.
The big thing worth saying, I think, is at the time we began this investigation, his organisation had one of the largest followings in the world of any Christian night.
What numbers are we looking at?
Millions on YouTube in particular. An absolutely enormous online following. And in the wake of the documentary, the church's social media accounts were all taken down. Their TV station is also no longer on air. And so in that sense, there was impact despite him slipping away into the afterlife before the investigation came out.
And so this is the BBC's, or rather it's your first ever series of doing like TikTok and sort of Insta videos, putting it all together. I'm just curious, how much persuasion was involved, to get approval to do this?
I'll say one bit and then pass on to the others. But it was because of the scale of their social media following that it was important for us to kind of lead with social coverage. There was a documentary made and there was a podcast made, but we needed to persuade an organization that had a very effective kind of disinformation machine that had been involved in silencing victims for many, many years. So we needed to try and be persuasive in the social space. So we had to occupy the same areas that the church's followers were occupying to try and kind of get the message out there.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say anything about persuasion exactly, but I think I'd say none of this would be possible without about 30 survivors that we spoke to who were so incredibly brave, speaking on the record about some of the incredibly horrendous sexual, psychological, physical abuse that they'd suffered. So yeah, this is a huge recognition for them and their massive bravery speaking on the record and allowing this documentary and series to be made. So this is for them, for sure.
Congratulations and thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
At Europe's largest special needs school, some of the most vulnerable children, many entirely non-verbal, were punched, kicked, and left sitting in urine for hours. Caught on camera, the special school staff who abused kids revealed appalling abuse and neglect.
The first minutes we can see David being dragged by 4 members of staff, 2 of them holding the arms, 1 in each arm, and 1 it was just grabbing the head. And then there is a 4th member of staff. So the 3, they went to the door, they put David on the floor, the 4th member of staff put like a knee and a hand on David's back.
A group of prison officers at one of Sweden's largest prisons has been systematically abusing and humiliating prisoners, leaving inmates mentally scarred. The prison humiliation.
En dag hamnar Reza i en diskussion med en kriminalvårdare. Inget allvarligt händer, säger han, men han tas till isoleringen.
Blev kallad för en massa olika saker och så fick jag ta med alla mina kläder, stå en ruta och så blev det tillsagt, rör du utanför rutan så kommer du få stryk. Du kommer få 5 personer på dig så du vet det.
Billionaire Jimmy Lai boldly challenged Beijing's oppressive regime through his media empire. HKSAR versus Jimmy Lai.
I've never personally met a man in my life or a person in my life who has less pettiness. Jimmy has no pettiness. It just doesn't exist. I've never seen the man say, let's get this guy or let's nail that guy. In fact, I've seen more than a few times where he saw that type of behavior and we cut it off.
In 2023, Uganda created one of the world's harshest LGBTQ+ laws, meting out severe punishment up to and including the death penalty.
Keep in mind, her case was the first of its kind in Uganda. Diplomats attended hearings. LGBTQ activists pushed international funders to cut aid to the country because of the Anti-Homosexuality Act. The case had a substantial ripple effect. Finally, the court magistrate declared the prosecution lacked evidence. The case was dismissed.
World of Secrets, the Abercrombie guys, shone a light on one of the fashion world's dark secrets, that men are victims too, suffering exploitation, sexual assault, and sex trafficking.
I helped you so many times, so now you can help me out, right? So felt like I owed him something.
So Barrett tries to rationalise it and says he tells himself to be open-minded. After all, he needs the money, and it's a chance to get in front of people who run a giant fashion brand.
I thought that this would open so many doors.
Commercial divers face immense risks in the Swedish diving industry, from potentially life-threatening situations to a culture of silence where serious incidents go unreported. Distress.
När jag vaknar till så ser jag att det sipprar in vatten. Får ju någon typ av panikkänsla liksom, bara fan, ska hela havet komma in här nu?
Han försöker simma, men kommer ingenstans.
Alltså min hjärna säger bara, kommer jag in i det stadiet att jag får panik, då överlever jag ju inte.
Han ser att luftslangen sitter fast i kranen.
The rise of instant messaging has made our social and professional lives faster, more casual, and perhaps far more chaotic. What does this mean for us all? Helen Lewis has left the chat.
Dangerous? Perhaps that sounds a bit strong, but not if you're a Conservative leader.
It sounds fanciful that a WhatsApp group can start to undermine a Prime Minister to the point where they are dethroned. But never before has there been a technological platform that is so instant, so easily tailorable to a group of individuals who are like-minded.
Well, 7 strong investigations there demonstrating that audio production, believe it or not, remain as important as ever in holding power to account and, of course, uncovering uncomfortable truths. And the judges listened carefully to each and every one of the submissions, and they decided that the winner for this year for an original, bold, and deep production that created a true theatre of the mind. And that goes to Distress. mind, I thought like Sweden always has it together, you know, they're very organized, everything very systematic. But what alerted you to the poor working conditions in Sweden's diving industry?
Right, so this was a real-time investigation. We started it, it was sparked by the death of a diver earlier this year, in January this year. And basically 2 weeks after, we started speaking to his colleagues, to his family, and it was like a can of worms. There had been a culture of silence within this very small industry in Sweden. We spoke also to divers from the UK who had been working in Sweden, and they came to Sweden because the salary is good, but they were surprised that
it's not that great.
No, the security, I mean, the safety conditions are really not up to standards if you compare to the UK.
Oh, right.
So, yeah.
So what has the impact been, I mean, since this story has gone out, in Sweden especially?
I think within the industry, a lot of things have changed.
That's good.
Normally, like before, there were maybe 2 or 3 divers when diving. Now, I think at least there are 4 in each team. And I think also the big impact has been that divers are now speaking openly about their working conditions. There's been sort of a culture within the Swedish diving industry, and I think that has really changed. I don't think it's only because of our work, it's also because of what happened to their colleague. Yeah.
And that's why we need to put stories like that out there. Thank you so very much
for
that. Congratulations.
The troubles in Northern Ireland were far more complex than one might think. The intelligence battle between the British and the paramilitaries had many twists. Now there's evidence that the IRA's most notorious spy hunter could have been a British spy.
Claire, like many grieving families, is still looking for answers. Not least, if their loved ones were working for the British, why didn't the British rescue them?
If he had been working for security forces, they could have saved him.
No rescue attempt was made. The naked bodies of the 3 alleged IRA informers were dumped in lonely country lanes.
In September 2021, Kenyan runner Agnes Tirop broke the women's 10,000 metres world record. 5 weeks later, she was dead, one of the many victims of the endemic gender-based violence that's faced by Kenyan female athletes.
He makes a call to his brother where he admits to what he's done. There was a manhunt on for Ibrahim Ratish at this point. There was police cars sent out looking for him, and eventually he became aware and handed himself into police.
There's a party on a paradise-like beach, followed by the disappearance of 2 upper-middle-class young people whose bodies were then abandoned in a sugarcane field. Who was behind this murder mystery?
Passadas 24, 48 horas, não batia com as características de sequestro e, de fato, não houve nenhum pedido de resgate.
E aí começou a se especular várias coisas. Se elas tivessem saído de Pernambuco, fugido para outro lugar, se pensava que pudessem ter ido para a casa de uma colega, de um namorado.
300 children in Gambia, Uzbekistan and Indonesia died after taking cough syrup manufactured in India and Indonesia. The medicine contained toxic ingredients, but the manufacturers deny wrongdoing.
Children under the age of 5 are the most vulnerable.
What happens in infants and young children, they will not complain. There may be just crying episodes. They will have fever, they have cough, they're not going to complain about abdominal pain, headache.
What's worse, most often, the children are accidentally poisoned by their own unsuspecting parents.
The challenges of waste management and illegal dumping in Romania are well documented. Hundreds of millions of euros have been invested by the EU. But has anything changed?
A few hundred meters from the landfill is a settlement that has long been known as Europe's biggest waste ghetto. More than 1,500 Roma people live here. Some were driven by poverty to move here and work as waste pickers. Every day they experience life in the shadow of a poorly run garbage dump. That means bad air, toxic grounds, and living without running water in their homes.
Who's really sponsoring your football team? Are the brands adorning the shirts of Premier League clubs part of a global network of shell companies and front organisations that are related to illegal sports betting and crime groups in China?
We knew from records found in the Philippines that Chan Yu was based in Manila. We also knew the company had placed several job adverts asking for Chinese speakers and lodged alien work permits enabling Chinese citizens to work out of its offices. Why? Could it be that Chan Yu's employees were doing something in the Philippines that was illegal in China? And could that be proxy betting?
Jasmine is one of the most valuable ingredients used in the creation of the world's most iconic perfumes. Yet in this $40 billion industry, child labour is being used to harvest this precious flower.
A significant number of jasmine pickers were children under the age of 15. And we can reveal that most of the flowers from these locations are sent via collection points to the main factories. A. Factory & Co., Hashem Brothers, and Mashalico. Multiple sources have also told us that there are children working on farms directly owned by one of the factories, Mashalico. But we had no way of accessing them unless we went undercover.
So holding power to account is obviously one of the most important roles we have as journalists. And out of the 7 shortlisted entries, the judges decided that the one that moved and informed the viewer while presenting a balanced view with outstanding storytelling should be the category winner. And it goes to Undercover Asia, Tainted Medicine Scandal. Jaya, well, this story, I believe, originated in Gambia, right? And it also involved Indonesians. It was about cough syrup, and it hit the headlines. So tell us a little bit more about why the rest of everyone else should sort of log into CNA and watch this.
So Undercover Asia is a belt, an investigative belt that we have on CNA, now available on Freeview 276. Everyone, please tune in. So the story came about because we were seeing these news reports come across the world from Gambia, from Indonesia, India, about young children who were dying. And there was no reason at that time where people could find out why this was happening. And the documentary investigated what was the connecting factor among all these cases, and it turned out to be cough syrup. And it was due to lax pharmaceutical practices where poisonous substances were being used in these cough syrup.
Yes. And it's really scary because I was just reading the news today, right? Like in Laos, for instance, it was tainted alcohol,
tainted
and
alcohol.
then a number of backpackers died from that. So that's a very scary situation. But when it comes to doing stories like that, right, what is the most challenging aspect?
I think with investigative shows, as everyone would attest to, getting to the nub of the story is the most difficult. We had a lot of difficulties getting the pharmaceutical companies to talk, but we had a great production partner, Blue Petal Films, who actually went all the way around the world to get to the crux of the story. And no documentary production is complete without a great commissioning editor. So my colleague Shamla Rajendran helped to piece together this very important piece.
Okay, very well done.
And before we end, I know it's about 6:30 a.m. in Singapore, and I must say what a great job you are doing, given that it's 6:30 a.m. in Singapore.
Thank you very much.
A big round of applause, please.
Thank you, thank you. And while we are here and we're in a spirit of things, because I mean, we CNA, we sort of launched in UK, and again, what's that channel you're talking about? What
Freeview channel 276.
Freeview channel 276. Thank you very much, Shaya. Thank you.
There are 8 nominees for our Presenter of the Year.
There are people who run towards the fire and the people who run away from it, right? All of us chose to do what we do. We're the type of people who would run towards it.
Sute de mii de părinți, din păcate, în România o duc. În această bătălie, voi nu le puteți câștiga aceste bătălii singuri.
Ngayong ikalawang araw ng pahalik sa puo ng itim na Nazareno dito sa Quirino Grandstand, sari-saring panalangin ang idinudulog ng mga deboto sa mahal na puon. Karamihan sa kanila may hinihiling pero ang talagang nananais.
立陶宛总统大选呢，在第一阶段5月12已经正式落幕了。不过，所有候选人呢，没有一个候选人是有50%的通过门槛。
There'll be people watching this now and saying, why are you talking to this man? He's a climate change denier. I'm a climate change realist. He's bordering on racist in some of his policies. And some people, and when I said to somebody yesterday I was going to come and interview, they said, why are you talking to him? He's a crank.
Listening to Berna's story, she's definitely strong and she's definitely a survivor. But is she using antidepressants as a sort of stopgap to deal with trauma? To navigate problems? Maybe.
Bit of history for you. The Association of the Red Cross of St George, there's St George, as an emblem of England, can be traced back to the late Middle Ages. Let's have a Middle Ages person.
How do you send one of the world's largest diamonds halfway around the globe? The diamond on that ship was a fake. The real one, they packed in a parcel and they sent it in the post.
Oh, what an extraordinary and diverse range of presenters, from different parts of the world. And just FYI, apparently there were only single points between each of the contenders. So naturally this year's competition was super duper tight. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is our last award of the night. And it is my pleasure to announce, all right, that the presenter of the year 2024 goes to, that's when you're supposed to be doing this, Dan Walker. All your fans out there, Dan's the man tonight.
I was so unexpectedly winning, thinking I was going to win this. I told them I was going to take my trousers off if I won, but I take that back. I take that back. Stop it. I knew you were rowdy, table 5.
So, no, that's yours.
Thank you.
So,
good evening, everybody.
So Dan, here's the thing, right?
Yes.
I want to come back next year to AIBs and I want to win this award.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's the secret sauce?
Well, the secret sauce, I mean, can I just say as well that I've been so impressed tonight by the standard of journalism from right around the world. And I always think as a journalist, as a broadcaster, our job is to always take the spotlight and shine it on some of those people, some of those stories, and to cover them in the best way possible. And I think I always consider that journalism is an amazing industry to be involved in, even though if you look at the least popular people in the UK, they are politicians, they're journalists, and they're estate agents. But I think
you're quite popular, though. I mean,
I know, but I think the
yeah.
thing is, this lot are all deluded. This is the rowdy table from Channel 5. But I think the important thing is, as a journalist, the reason why I love it is because you are given, through your job, you're given a sword to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. You're given a shield to defend people who can't defend themselves. And you're given a pen, and that pen can actually change the world. And I think that's why it's an amazing industry to be part of. And that's why, some of the films you've seen on the screen tonight, they are changing things that governments do. They are changing things that people are doing and looking at and thinking about in far-flung corners of the world. And that's why I think journalism is amazing. And the other thing I would say is you're only as good as the people that you work with. And that team over there are absolutely amazing. And I think in an industry that for many years has been dominated by white men, there are 10 of us on that table from Channel 5. 8 of them are women. Our deputy editor is Jess Bullman there, who's brilliant. She's a woman. Our lead director is Bea Baddick, who's one of the best in the business, and we currently have the only black editor anywhere in UK TV. In fact, in UK journalism, and that's Debbie Ramsey.
But what about? Okay, you've addressed everyone else, but what about an Asian face there? When do we get an Asian face there as well?
I'm not in charge of recruitment, but do you fancy a job?
Hey.
I know that it's 6:30 in Singapore, but it's
not tonight. Not tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so for some of us who might not be so familiar with Dan, the man, so you started, it was interesting because you started off with radio, and then you did TV sports as well. That was a big thing. How did all of that help?
I don't really know. I've done a bit of everything over the years. I always feel, I think in this industry, people try to pigeonhole you, don't you? Say, can you do sport? Can you do news? Can you do radio? You can't do this because you've done that. And I fundamentally don't believe in that. I think it's all about storytelling. And I think most of us in here are just storytellers. And you can tell a great story, whether it's somebody on a football pitch, whether it's somebody in a foreign government that you want to tell a story about, whether it's somebody you meet in a park and it changes their life. And I think all it is, it's finding a brilliant story to tell, and then all you have to do is tell it in the best way possible. And I think some of them have been told beautifully in this room tonight. So it's a real privilege for me to be... Well, thank you. It's a real privilege to be stood on this stage. And also, can I show a bit of love to the other people who are nominated as well, including Jeremy Vine, who I think is one of the best in the business. And if you want a job in UK TV, go and work for him.
Not tonight again, I'll say that. But yeah, so any final words we've got emerging talents, we've had some of them out here.
We've been here a very long time. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Good night.
Excellent, thank you, Dan.
Well done, Dan. Thank you for those few words. Lot of words, in fact. Anybody would think he worked in television. Anyway, congratulations to all the winners here tonight. Thank you all for allowing us to celebrate with you and to showcase your work. It's your event, it's not ours. We're just here to help you along. But I must say it's the dedication to truth, to storytelling and the pursuit of knowledge that we've seen tonight. As Dan commented, it is remarkable, and Malcolm commented as well. It's what we all do, what you all do. I gave up a little while ago. I end up doing voiceovers for awards. But you do set the standard for the entire industry around the world, from Brazil to Senegal to Singapore to Taiwan, everywhere. So well done. Now, as we draw to the end, I want to give a few words of thanks. Firstly, please join me in thanking CNA for so kindly arranging our host this evening, Otelli Edwards. Otelli has done a wonderful job, considering it is only 6:37 in the morning as well. I think we've got a small token of our appreciation just behind you.
Oh, wow. More
chocolate. So thank you, Otelli. We must also thank the invaluable and indispensable support of our event partners, Radio Taiwan International. They're essential to the success of the AIBs this year and in recent years. Thank you so much for being our event partner. I must also thank Paydesk for sponsoring the shiny new winners and finalists book, which is available on a table near you as you leave. Don't leave just yet, though. But thank you to Paydesk. It catalogues the award, the book catalogues all the winners and highly commendeds tonight. It looks back at the first 2 decades of the AIBs. Will I still be standing here in 20 years' time? I don't know. Jury's out on that. And it has a feature on Paydesk. We thought we'd better give them a couple of words in the book just to help them along. And last, but certainly not least, I've got to thank the very small team that has worked tirelessly to stage the AIBs 2024. As always, Claire Fuller, who is hiding behind a pillar. Come up on the stage, Claire, for God's sake. She deserves an extra special word of thanks. It's Claire who produces this competition from the launch in April through to tonight and beyond, and is about to start, would you believe, on the 21st AIBs for 2025. There's our thank you, Claire, thank you very much. There's our incredibly capable live director, Neil Stainsby, who's round the corner, camera right. He's been masterminding the show from the gallery alongside PA Bev and the technical crew we have as well as those who've joined us from the IET. So thank you to all the crew. In closing, I think we all need to continue to be inspired by the incredible work of our winners and everything we've seen tonight. And let this be a reminder of the crucial and important role that journalism and storytelling play in our society around the world. Meanwhile, we can't wait to see what the 21st AIBs will bring in 2025. So now, I wish you farewell for this evening, safe travels back from wherever you've come, whether it's Bognor Regis or Brazil. But do stay for a bit more socialising. The bar is open. We're in this room, got this room till about 11:30. There's a wonderful view. Go out and have a look. Take your pictures. You can see from Big Ben through to the Shard. Enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you for coming and see you next year.